else.
I don't even see your post.
Really?
Yeah.
I put it up.
On Facebook?
Hello. If anyone can hear me, this is Dan. I'm live with Dave. Basically, we've been having a long conversation, and I know you can't see anything. I did that on purpose. I'm working on stuff that I don't want people to see. So we're gonna have a conversation. There's gonna be nothing on the screen. Okay, that's what's up. It's just gonna be audio. I'll probably save this as an audio file later if there's anything worth keeping. We're just going to be talking, no painting. So if you need something to listen to, welcome. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different kinds of stuff, but it's mostly about freelance, lifestyle, frustrations, humps that you got to get over. This is basically Alcoholics Anonymous, but for art people. So let's do it. Hello.
Hey, I'm just posting this up on Facebook.
Sure. I forgot that I have to get old Procaster back because the audio stuff is all fucked up in the new one. But they should still be able to hear you. Let me know if you guys can't hear Dave well. I'm assuming you should be able to understand him. It might be a little echoey or something. But
right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You'd have to do that weird
Sounds fine. Okay.
set thing to it.
All right, cool. As long as you guys can hear him, that's all I care about. So, all right, good. But anyway, basically, I guess I'll start, and we'll just start ranting like we tend to do. I'm full of coffee, so that's good.
Yeah, I got the coffee high going too.
Yeah, I got the coffee high. Basically, I'm not really gonna be looking at the chat, but because I'm working, we're just talking. We thought we'd save it. But I'm at a point in my career that anyone who's a professional that's listening has probably been here before. Anyone who's not a professional yet will probably get to that point. I think everyone kind of goes through it to some degree. I'm going through it in a really strong degree right now, and it's killing me from the inside slowly. So basically, the metaphor that I've been using, which I think is the most effective way to put it, is when you start this journey kind of thing to do freelance, and you set out and you're going to be an artist and you're idealistic and you've got all these great ideas and passions and I want to do this and I want to do this and I'm going to do this, and it's all energy and it's all great all the time. It's like, it's like the sailors setting off on a galley in the 1600s. We're going to go find the new world. We're going to go find a new spice route. We're going to go, find China. Like woo, yeah. And they have a map of how to get there, and they've talked to people that have done it before, and they're like, yeah, this is going to be great. We basically know what we got to do. We got our supplies, we got our battle plan, we got our map. We know approximately how long it's going to take. And you set out, and for a long time it's really positive and it's really great, and you've got people around you that want to do the same thing, and it's supportive. And then all of a sudden the wind stops blowing, and you're in the doldrums. And then you turn into a fucking cannibal, and you want to kill the other people that are on the ship with you, and you're not getting anywhere, and you've been following the map the whole time, so you're like, we should be there by now, but you're not fucking there, and you can't see land anywhere, and you can't jump out of the boat because what are you gonna do? You've invested all this time, you're in the middle of the fucking ocean, you'll just drown. You know what I mean? What do you do?
Yes, it's like it's that part in a freelancer's career where you're on this sort of insane trip that you know it has an end, but it's so far up there, and to use what you're saying, it's like there's no land in sight.
Yeah, it's
and where you end up, it's probably not even where you were going.
Exactly. I mean, this is the metaphor I've been using, but it's just you set out, it's going to be a voyage, approximate how long it's going to take, all the stuff I just said. And then you get out in the middle of the ocean, and you're still sailing, you're still on the boat, you're still going somewhere on the water, you still have crewmates and stuff, but you've lost your bearings. It's like there's no stars anymore, and you're just like, where do we go? And that's the thing is it's this whole thing. I mean, the crux of this whole issue is you start working, you take the jobs you can get, and then the jobs that you can get turn into the jobs that you're expected to do because we were in a very structured kind of
Yeah, and you're also limited to
yeah.
whatever jobs even exist.
I mean, there's only so many companies that'll hire you to do the kind of stuff we want to do, and they all have set rates and they all have set art styles. So it's like, you start out, you take the jobs you can get at first because you're a beginner, and then the jobs you can get turn into the jobs that you have to do or that you're expected to do. And then there's a huge risk of something that I've been going through, and I'm sure a lot of other people have probably gone through without even realizing it. You end up becoming the jobs that you're expected to do or that you have to do, and you lose the identity of the person that you were when you started out. Like when you set out on that mission and you want to be an artist and you got all these things you want to do and all these passions, somewhere along the line you have to stop being that person to get the jobs that you need to get to pay the bills to support the lifestyle of doing art all the time. And there's like a huge risk. I'd say it's higher than 50-50, where most people that end up at that point over time forget why they even started doing it. They forget who they are. They forget why they got into it, and they just become a mirage. You fade into the mesh of the background. You look like everybody else that's doing the same jobs you're doing, and it just becomes this weird kind of like inbred, emotionless, featureless thing of people doing it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much like I was telling Dan earlier. We kind of got into this and we've been on this call for like I don't know, maybe like a few hours now.
Yeah.
But I was talking about my whole journey doing this. I'm not saying that I'm done and I'm this big whatever. But I'm doing work for bigger companies, marketing stuff, and I got to a place, but the road there. It's full of compromise and it's full of decisions that you got to make stylistically about who you want to be as opposed to what kind of money you want to make, what kind of jobs you see yourself doing. So, I mean, like, for me, it's, freelance is such the journey to becoming the artist you want to be, especially in the freelance path, because you're not like, you're not set into a job where you're just a character artist, or you're just an environmental guy, or you're doing like 3D models. You're everything pretty much for a while. So it's such an ambiguous thing to aim at that you don't necessarily know what the goal is. So it becomes more like what Dan was saying, where you have to align yourself with like a style.
Yeah.
Something that is marketable and makes a lot of money. And right now that's the high render, like everything's crystal clear, lasso tool kind of look.
Yeah.
And like that's a really big thing. It's easy to do, but like that whole idea that you basically have to conform and become this idea of what a like finished artist is. It's like you can't work for a company. I mean, rarely do you get the opportunity to work for a company and you're doing like Art Nouveau shit.
Yeah, it's
or like anything like super stylized. You end up having to be these big time guys. And we were talking about that, and I'm talking about like where I come from. I'm basically like at this point right now, I'm on my way back from that, like trying so hard to remember why. It's not as desperate or like sad as it sounds, but it's like I'm desperately trying to get back to a place where I thought like the place I thought I would end up when I started, like the cool stuff, like the original ideas, the cool designs, the personality.
Anyone who's been around Daggers or has listened to any of our streams or interviews or stuff, you're familiar with a term that we use called study sickness, where you're so concerned with getting better that you do more studies than personal work or ideas off the top of your head, and what ends up happening is all your work starts to look correct, but it stops being interesting. What happens is like, you draw a perfectly anatomy guy, but he's not wearing anything. He just looks like a muscly dude because you don't have the original ideas anymore to design something, which is the whole fucking point of this. Like, you've worked so hard on getting it right that you've completely lost sight of getting it good. And, like, it's happening all over the place, and it's happening to me, and I'm starting to forget why I got into this, and I know it's happened to Dave. And, like, just before we go any further, we're not shitting on anyone. We're just having a discussion that I mean, we hope other people can relate to. We hope other people have thought about this stuff and maybe not want to say it. Maybe it's disparaging. Maybe it's just kind of depressing. You don't want to bring it up. But like, whenever I bring something up or Dave brings something up when we're talking to each other and it completely resonates with the other person on every level, we're like, okay, there has to be other people out there that are going through this. Like we have to talk about this. Like, but I'm going through it now where it's like I look at my portfolio and again, I love the fact that I can get work and I'm not shitting on my clients either, but it's like I look at my portfolio and it's not me. I look at my portfolio and it's like, well, that's not the person I set out to be when I was going to do art. How did it become this? You know, it's like, how did I get to this? And what happens is, you know, you start compromising to get jobs. You start doing the things you're expected to do to get the other jobs.
And then you're trying to be right all the time.
Yeah, you're trying to be
for the jobs.
Yeah, you're trying to get everything right instead of getting it good while maintaining the styles of the jobs, while keeping the clients happy, while getting it done on a timely basis over and over and over again. And eventually, you know, especially when you're in the middle, because I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of freelance. I don't have enough money really. It's on the everything's to the extreme. My schedule is completely full. I don't have free time. If I'm not working, I'm homeless. So it's like I'm right in the middle where everything has to be super chaotic. And like if you do that long enough, you literally forget who you are. You forget why you're doing it. It becomes about getting the job done, and it becomes about putting out a product that's good enough to get paid without blowing anyone's mind. Because that's what it becomes, a paycheck. It becomes a job, and it stops being a passion, and it's fucking horrible.
Yeah, and for me, I'm at like a different place in freelance where I've been straight freelancing for 6 years now, and like I never took a studio job. I was never not doing this. So like for me, like I had some people around, but I was always working. And, you have an idea of kind of like what you set out. And this is something that I'm kind of like, it's like a real thing I'm trying to deal with, that I've like kind of come to terms with, that, I'm fighting now, where like I worked my way so far in the opposite direction of like being a human being.
Yeah.
That like it's hard to tap into like why you do it, like what I was saying before.
Yeah.
It's like it's actually hard, and if you haven't like experienced what it's like to freelance for that long,
yeah,
it's hard to kind of understand that. But man, like it's totally nuts. Like like I basically, like me, I gotta joke around about like becoming like almost like a sociopath, because I sit at the computer all the time.
Yeah, you lose touch.
Yeah, you lose touch with everybody. Like I had a whole thing where it's like all of a sudden, and it's a dangerous thing that I don't, we started the Crimson Daggers, did that forever, and I worked that like constantly, and then from there I just did work all the time, without really like, because I wanted to get straight to the end.
Yeah.
And yeah, like what somebody said in the chat, like Algan Flegger, he did the same thing, like he did the same thing I'm talking about right now. And I've talked to him about it before, where you get, you want to cut through the crap. And this is just a warning to anybody who's about to do this. I did it for 5 years straight. Got to the point where now I can do like, I can work on like movies and shit and advertising and all this stuff, which is cool, pays a lot of money, great. But it's such a cost to do that, like to not have connections.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm looking around now and I'm like, holy shit, like I didn't go outside enough, like I didn't make enough friends.
Yeah.
Like I have so many people online, and this is the sociopath thing I'm talking about, where it's like I don't even like maybe I'm not just personable enough in real life now, Like, I don't react the same way to
Well,
things.
it's like, okay, everything you do in life, because of the nature of being a human being and because of how our brain works, everything you do is a culmination of the practice you've put into it. I can't ice skate because I've never really spent any time ice skating. I can draw okay because I spend all my time drawing. But if I don't go outside for 6 months and I do nothing but study and I don't have social interactions, then if I suddenly decide I'm going to go to the bar, everyone thinks I'm a fucking serial killer because I'm so out of practice with human interaction that I come off as some kind of fucking alien. Everything you do is a culmination of how often you do it. So if you become antisocial, then guess what? You're going to develop antisocial. You're actually going to have it. Like, it's really fucked up to think about, and it's really weird. But, like, if this is all you do, which for me it is because I don't have the money right now or the freedom or the time to go out and really socialize with people, you actually start to develop problems socializing. It's really weird. Like, I can sit here and be totally honest and have a candid conversation with my computer screen, and you guys can listen to it and go, oh, he can communicate pretty well. He can talk. He doesn't sound like he has a problem. But if I go out in a group of people, it's like, eh, uh, like it's not. It's alien. It's weird. It's strange. I'm so out of practice doing it. I don't really know. I miss all the beats of the conversation. My brain's too concerned with the fact that I'm not sitting at home drawing to be comfortable. It's just strange. And when you end up in that kind of position, you don't realize it's going to happen. It just happens. You know what I mean? You just wake up one day, someone calls you to do something, you go do it, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is who I am now. This is how do I get back from that? And like for anyone listening, like we're not saying don't work hard. We're not saying that it's never going to happen. We're not saying that your goals are impossible. Everything's totally possible, and hard work totally pays off. But like this is just like a cautionary tale, where it's like yeah, you can go through the woods and get to the other side of the woods, and there's something great over there. But you could very easily get lost in the woods and stay in the woods forever if you're not careful. You could trip and fall and die. You could scratch yourself on a tree and get tetanus. An animal could eat you. It could start raining and you could die from exposure. You could go around in circles forever. It's like when you stop thinking about what you're doing and it becomes automatic and it's a job and it's the next job. I got to get the next job. It's paycheck, 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 paycheck. If that's your lifestyle, you can only do that so long before you forget what it's like to be a human being. And that sounds hyperbolic and it sounds crazy to say out loud, but I am starting to forget how to be a human being. So now it's like, oh, I got to dial this back and not
Yeah.
just not be a calendar. Because right now I'm a calendar. It's I got to have this done, then I got to have this done, then I got to have this done, then I got to have this done, then. That's not a life. It's crazy and it's counterintuitive to a lot of the stuff we've said on here before. But like again, I'm just addressing this because it's happening with me. I'm assuming other people have these concerns. I hope they do, or I sound fucking insane. But
Yeah,
it's like,
it's just like a. I mean, like what we're talking about is it's a product of working hard and trying to become something, but it is fed. It's fed by the industry.
yeah,
Like we were talking about this earlier. For the amount of time and just like work you put into becoming a good artist,
this
which
is
is
a
such a
yeah,
crazy thing.
this is a huge
Becoming
point.
a good artist isn't a goal.
Mm,
It's like it's unobtainable because it's always changing and it's ambiguous and it's whatever. It's something out there that might even change as you're moving, and taste changes. The new guy who becomes the best that everybody wants somebody like that changes over time,
yeah,
but for the amount of work that most people put into becoming like a good artist who gets a lot of jobs and stuff,
mm,
you could have done like anything.
anything. Like we were
Like,
talking, we were talking about this earlier, guys. Really think about this. If you're not getting the jobs you want to get, and you're in the middle like me, and you're just unsatisfied, the thing that most people do, it's a mistake that I make, it's a mistake that I'm sure others are making. You automatically say, well, I must not be working hard enough. That is okay. I've been freelancing for a little under 2 years now. I was freelancing when I was in college. I worked through college to start freelancing. The amount of time and work that I've put into improving as an artist to get jobs, if I had done that in any field except art, if I had done that in a concrete field and not something that's like, talent or skill based or whatever, like for example, if I took all the hours I've put into becoming an artist and I put them into becoming a brain surgeon, I'd be a millionaire right now. If I took
Yeah,
all the
it's like
if I
it's
took
like
all the hours if I took all the hours I put into getting better at doing art and I put them into a law degree, I would be the best lawyer in fucking Massachusetts right now. I could be an Olympian pole vaulter. I could be a professional big game fisherman. I could be the best car dealership in the world. The amount of hours that you have to put in to do this well in any other field guarantees you a safety net lifestyle. You would have a salary, you'd have benefits, you'd be working at some kind of structured place where there's things to give you stability and safety. The amount of stress you're going through paycheck to paycheck to paycheck in healthcare, that would probably be taken care of. None of that is available to us in what we do because it's freelance. But it's not that you're not working hard enough. The amount of hours you have to put in to even start getting work, period, like company work, that's insanity. It's like you'd be the manager of any place you were working. You know what I mean?
well, yeah, you would have been the manager like forever ago.
Yeah, it's like it's crazy to think about that, but it's like you're not getting any money, you're not getting any benefits, you're not getting any of the things that other people are getting for doing a quarter of the work that you're doing. That's the thing. You're working hard enough and you're working enough hours, but this fucking freelance field and the people that the jobs that employ you and the structure of the whole thing, it's not conducive to a stable lifestyle. It's manic. It's paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. There's no security net. There's nothing. So you become a series of paychecks. You become a calendar because the idea of missing one of those payments, suddenly you can't go to the doctor, you can't go to the dentist, you can't make your car payment, your student loans default. It's like any other field, you'd be fine. You'd be comfortable. You'd have a sense of worth. You'd have a sense of forward progress. You'd be successful. People would go, "Wow, what a look at that paying off. What an exemplary citizen." But in this, it's like, "Oh, you've put 20,000 hours into doing this. Well, it's going to take 80." It's like, oh my god.
You see, and then this is another thing where people say like what's in the chat, like the idea that you're not working hard enough, where it's like that is crazy. Like I used to think the same thing. I'd be like, I would say I'm not working hard enough strictly based on the idea that I wasn't doing the best jobs and I wasn't those best people.
Yeah.
So working hard enough became this sort of this goal that didn't even exist. It was like I could work forever. So I would, like 6 years every single day, like I took like 2 vacations and that's not like work days. That's like all days.
Yeah.
Like
You don't
in the
have
past,
when you're
in the past like
self-employed.
year and a half, I've been okay.
Yeah, when you're self-employed, you don't have weekends.
Yeah, but that's the thing of it. And the other side is like, another thing in the chat that said it depends on people. Some people have that lifestyle and others balance it a bit better. And the other thing about that is that like, yeah, you can balance it, but if you're driven and you want the best,
Yeah.
then like, and if you're gonna put everything into this, like a lot of the people did in the Crimson Daggers group, where I feel like you invest so much time. It's like, there's a balance, but it's like you always have to be like on top of your game. You always have to be in it.
Think about it this way, guys. If you don't understand what we're trying to say, the freelance model is basically it's okay when you're just starting out, and at the end it's great if you follow through and you do all the stuff. Like if you start out freelancing and your goal is to get to a certain point and have a certain amount of artistic freedom and do the jobs that you always wanted to do and work on the things you always wanted to do and do work that you feel like matters and is good and fun and entertaining, that's the thing, is like the payoff is fantastic, but everything in the middle isn't that. So by default, it sucks. So the whole time you're looking at this horizon that doesn't seem to be getting any closer. And what starts to happen is that, like, if everything in the middle sucks, then what's the goal? The goal becomes to get to the end as fast as possible. How do you get to the end as fast as possible? You cut out anything that's wasting your time to shave off the extra years it's going to take to get there. So you get into this mindset where it's like, wow, I really don't like being in the middle of this freelance thing. I want to get to the end. I want to get the better jobs. I want to have the freedom. So I'm going to stop going out. I'm going to stop seeing my friends. I'm going to stop going home. I'm going to stop going outside. I spend this many hours at the gym. Let's cut that in half. Let's invest all of this into art to get that number down as low as it possibly can. Instead of being a professional at 28, I want to be a professional at 26. So let's take that time, let's reallocate it, let's get it out of the way. And that works, but holy shit, is there a cost?
Yeah, and I'm not talking about like the people that just want to like kind of do this. Like I'm saying that like like the whole sacrifice thing where like Dan can attest to this where the like I said before when we started this out is the industry doesn't support you being mediocre.
No.
You can't be like if your thing is to be great at doing freelance and to be a really good artist and all this stuff without like for me, I never wanted to have a full-time job. I never wanted to go into an office. I didn't want to move across the country. I didn't want to have to do all that. I like being at home. I like having my dogs around. I like being able to have a little bit of freedom if I need it. So ideally, that's the way I wanted to live. But the point is it's not that you're holding yourself under a gun. It's that, like, sure, go live in the boonies out in the middle of nowhere where you're not really around anybody and, like, let that be your life. But at the same time, okay, you can live that, you can do the art that way and be comfortable and do the whatever mediocre jobs that don't really pay anything. But if you want to like for me, I live in Boston. If you want to live here, pay all your utilities, pay rent, and be a freelancer,
yeah,
there's no way you can just take on like, the handful of jobs you can get if you're not doing like professional work.
right.
And that's what I mean by that is that the jobs in and of themselves, the ones that would be convenient, that would allow you to take your time, and this is what I mean by it's not your fault kind of thing. It's them not paying the rates, which is a whole other problem. But yeah, it's just not conducive.
I mean,
to
like
that lifestyle. Like, you just can't do that. I couldn't live around my family and take on Dungeons and Dragons only and be like, great.
Yeah, and it's like I see this question a lot, and like like every answer, it's relative. So I'm going to give you the answer that's true relative to my situation because I can't pretend to be anyone else. It's like if you could go back, would you do it different? Would you not work as hard? Would you spend more time doing other things? And the answer, unfortunately, and I know this is counterintuitive and it might seem hypocritical, but I feel like I don't have an option because unfortunately, what I did was I wasted a bunch of time in school. I got out when I was like 24. And when I was 24, I said to myself, okay, if I'm a novice at 24 and it's going to take at least 4 years to probably get to a skill level where I'm going to have these great jobs, if I don't start right now and cut all the fat out of this thing, I'm going to be over 30 years old and not have any life savings by the time I'm making a living. And that was fucking horrifying. That was like really horrifying. So I scared myself into this position where I was like, I'm going to do it all the time. It's the only thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get out of the way as fast as possible because I felt like I didn't have enough years to really take it casual. Like if you're young and you're listening to this, if you're like 15 or whatever, start now and keep it casual and you'll be good enough at 24. You know what I mean? Like that stretch of like 15 to 20, that's like almost 10 years. If you're working half the time instead of all the time, you'll be good enough by the time you get to that age. You don't want to end up in a scenario where it's a ticking clock and you're like, wow, am I really going to have no life savings at 30? It's like, shit, what am I going to do? How do I dig myself out of this hole as fast as possible? Like, the longer you wait to start doing this stuff, the worse it's going to be. Like, the situation that I'm in, I don't feel like I can stop. like I'm complaining about it and we're having this conversation for the sake of, hopefully other people are feeling this and we want to relate, we want to have an honest discussion. But like, I don't think I can change anything. I think the fastest solution for me is to keep doing what I've been doing and get to the other side, because I'm so deep in it now that if I was to stop, I wouldn't be able to pay my rent. I'd have to move back in with my parents. I'd default on money. Like, bad things would happen. So unfortunately, I don't really have an option. But if you do have an option and you're listening to this, take it seriously, because, oh man, you don't want to look at that ticking clock. You really don't. It's just like, oh man, God, if I could even be 22 again, I'd be like, okay, cool. I know now that, I should be taking this very seriously much sooner than I was. But like, that's the thing, is like, it's not healthy to think about the clock ticking, but it is. It is, and you should know that in the back of your head. It's going to take the same amount of time to get where you're going, no matter when you start. So
Yeah, but
don't start late.
I want to address this. This is a thing in the chat that I think a lot of people talk about, where he's saying, "Why can't you get another job for security to keep you afloat?"
You can't do it. I mean, go ahead, talk about it. I mean, yeah.
And he said, "I know some who do okay. They're not mega professionals, but they have a backup plan." Exactly. You just said it.
Yeah, exactly.
You literally just said it. They're not mega professionals, and they have a backup plan. I mean, in your head, I mean, like, I guess there's obviously many different people, but for me, it was like, there's no plan B.
Well, that's the thing. It's like,
I don't want to not do this. Like, I want it really, really bad. It sucks what it takes out of you, but there is no plan. There's no other option. If I did that, I would feel, and maybe this is a weakness for me, but if I did that, I would feel like I failed.
Yeah.
Or that I gave up.
But that's the thing, is like, the amount of people that want to do art is in the hundreds of thousands. That's just a fact. The amount of people that want to do something like this is huge. Now, you're saying, like, there's not hundreds of thousands, but there are hundreds of thousands of people that want to do this. So if you really want to do it and you're really serious about it, it's a huge gamble. The amount of people that don't end up doing it, the amount of people that try to do it and fail, the amount of people that try to do it and give up halfway. If you're going to do this, it's high stakes poker. You're betting everything. Everything has to be on the table, or it's just not going to happen. That's the thing, is that it's so hard to get to a point where you've succeeded in this, really succeeded. Like, think of the definition of success in your mind. Success isn't, I break even every month and I'm good. It's like, it's more than that. To really do it, it's got to be high stakes gambling. That's the thing, is like, I can't work 40 hours a week at FYE and seriously start trying to be an artist. I did do that for a year, and then I was in college and working at an FYE and trying to be an artist. There's not enough hours in the day. It takes so much time to do this seriously, especially when you start getting commissions and you have to get them out and they have to look good. Especially when you have to make a portfolio to get company work. That's a huge chunk of time. You can't physically do it and have a job on the side. You just can't.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody, and I realize this, but the goal for me was never to just be okay. It was never to just get a job and stop. I want to create things. I want to make books. I want to travel the world. I want to make movies eventually. I want to do all this stuff because it's just dreams. You have dreams. And, I feel like if you're somebody like that, or you have, those kind of big, ambitious goals, it's like to not do, to not dive into it.
Louisa in the chat, what you're saying, see, this is the thing that you have to understand. I hear this a lot, and it's total bullshit, and I'm sorry to call you out on it, but you're saying, like, it's funny to hear you guys complaining about the rates because you're in a country like the United States that pays good rates for freelance, whereas I'm in Brazil. Countries don't exist when you're a freelance artist. It's all on the internet. You could get the jobs that the U.S. people are paying me. Like, if I get a job from DeviantArt, and it's a freelance job to do a character for $150 USD, that $150 is the same in Brazil. It's the same in Japan. You could get the job if you're Japanese listening to this. That's still available.
I know a professional who lives in Brazil that I'm friends with, and he does like a lot of the same kind of work I do.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, oh, I live in Australia, so freelance pays less. Freelance isn't country based. It's the internet. The entire industry is on the internet. Literally, the entire thing is on the internet.
Yeah, it's like unless your like conversion rate, like somebody said, is really terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's still the same money. The conversion rate is it's a set thing. It's not like that 150. The 150 bucks might mean something else in another country, but it's still 150 USD. That's the thing. It converts back to that money.
Yeah, but anyways, the whole thing about this, like, to go back to the other thing about, Dan talked about what if you would do anything differently, and I like I think about that now, and the thing that's obviously it's different. Like I'm in a place now where I can slow down. I feel a little safer. But if I could go back, and this is still like, it's what I was talking about. Like, there are things I would want to do differently. I just don't know how realistic it is. Uh, when I started and I was working, I started kind of out of desperation. My first thing was like, I really needed to do something. I was coming out of like a court case where I wasn't going to be able to get normal jobs. I had like a lot of stress. It was a lot of stress at the time, and I was like, I need to do this. So I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to try and become a freelancer because I could do that from home. So I started really really working at it, and like you were saying before, like other people talking about how like you should live this sort of life where you can take it easy, go and do the stuff, take time, have a balance. But realistically, back then, I know it would be similar. I wouldn't have had the same drive that I had if I had done something differently. Like, I needed to move somewhere back then where I could afford to live and do my sort of dream. And like, that's really hard, especially where I was. Ideally, I would have come up to Boston, which was south. I mean, I lived south of Boston. I would have moved up there, but I just couldn't do it.
It's not.
It's so much money. I had to move out in the middle of nowhere, where I knew I could at least pay my bills and have a little bit more freedom. And being there was an incentive for me. It was an incentive for me to really work hard and get out. It's like I didn't want to do that, but it was motivating, and I did that, and I moved to someplace just prettier, but also kind of cheap too, like up in New Hampshire, where it was the mountains, and before that it was Illinois, and like I lived up in the mountains in New Hampshire, and that was nice, but it isn't ideal. Ideally, if I could change my life, I would have not done that.
Right.
But that's to say, like, but what is the, but what is what I have right now? Was that worth it? It's a really weird balance, because I feel like now in my career, after doing all that, and I'm talking about it not to say it to everybody on here that don't pursue this, blah blah blah. It's like, I'm not trying to say that.
We're just trying to have a real discussion about things.
Yeah, I'm trying to just say things that I feel like a lot of people think but don't talk about.
Yeah.
And a lot of freelancers kind of go through something similar. But anyways, I'm just saying that, like, there are a lot of things I wish I didn't do, and I wish I could do differently. But the outcome is so much the way it is now that it's like, I don't know. It's, because it's pretty good to be at an end point where I can sell my own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, let's address this that I'm seeing in the chat. People are saying, like, yeah, I get what you're saying. Artists aren't appreciated anywhere. That's complete bullshit. It's complete bullshit. The fact of the matter is that artists who've made it are appreciated everywhere. And it's so hard to make it because it takes so much and so much time, so much effort, so much thought, so much studying, so much application. Like, and then, you know, the factor of once you've done all of that, do you still have that spark you started with that's going to ultimately make you just another guy or a success? But, like, I'm talking with Dave, so I'll use him as an example. Dave can literally do anything he wants right now, and people will buy it. People will love it because he has the access and the audience. He's made it to a point where he has all that stuff. It took him forever, and it cost him God knows what. But, like, artists are appreciated everywhere. There's no place in the world where artists aren't appreciated. It's just that the number of artists who make it to that point where they have the audience to be appreciated is so small in comparison to the amount of people that get lost along the way that it feels like it doesn't exist. It totally exists. 100%. That's the thing. It's just if you fall off, if you never get back on, if you never get to that point where you have the audience, the access, the skill set, like the ideas for the skills to, you know, that you can use to do that. Yeah, I mean, of course, it seems disheartening, but that's the thing. There's no place in the entire world where artists aren't appreciated. It's just it takes so much to get there. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you know, it's like you shouldn't expect things. You should never expect anything. That it's going to be a certain way, that people just should respect that you try to do art.
Yeah.
It's like never just like say like, I deserve this. It's like, you know, I don't, you know, like there's some really good people out there who do things I don't care about.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I just don't know what they do. It doesn't mean that, I don't know. It's just
because, like, okay, if anyone listening to this is a freelancer right now, if you can still remember why you became an artist, what the spark was, what the inspiration was, what you wanted to do, what's your dream job? Not what is it now. What was it when you got into this before all this stuff started happening? Think about that, really, really narrow it down, and then look at your portfolio, your professional portfolio. Is that portfolio you? Are you that body of work? When you send that to a client and they look at it, are they going, oh, this is them? Because that's what it should be. And if that's the case, then 90% of the people I know are one company. There's none of them are individuals. That's the crazy thing, is that when you send off a portfolio, you're literally telling people, as an artist, this is who I am. You're looking at my personality, you're looking at my soul, you're looking at my mission statement. It's all on the table. Here's my portfolio. Then why do so many portfolios look exactly the same? It's kind of scary.
No, I mean, like I had to. I mean, like stuff I do for. I mean, like I talked about it on the live streams a bunch. I moved into doing advertising like over a year ago, and just the stuff I end up doing for advertising is like, it's just everything, everything that already exists. And it's a crazy balance because, you know, like that road to being the thing you want doesn't end with money.
Yeah.
It doesn't end with jobs. It doesn't end with a goal. Like you had an idea of what that stuff is, those things, but you have to keep in mind. I mean, like if there's anything I would change, we were talking about before, it's that I would have kept up my own stuff on the side. I would have, the same way I made myself these studies in the morning, I would have given myself time to think. Just to think about stuff. Just to, like, relax.
Yeah.
Just for, like, an hour a day or something. Listen to music, try to come up with ideas. Even if I couldn't execute them well. It's like I would have given myself that. But I was kind of scared, and I wanted to work towards a goal that I thought was fleeing away from me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, like, the thing is that the thing you set out to be, Magic the Gathering, all this other stuff, you'll end up doing it, and you'll have that, and that'll be you. That was what happened to me. I you know, like, I still do stuff. I still do, like, you know, blanket, whatever, monster, whatever card. And, okay, I did that. Some people like it. It's not me. It's not what I would do had nobody told me what to do. And it's not to say that, like, people will never want that from you on jobs. They will, but you have to earn it, and you earn it by getting somewhere like a magic or anything like that, but then also trying to be yourself on the side. And like I had to I had to really break away from that. I mean, like that's why I did that Ninja Turtles thing. It was my take on it mixed with something that was still marketable. And it was like also like an application for other things to be like, look what I could do to your IP.
Yeah.
And I did that because of that, because I was scared. I was scared that I would only end up doing these like fantasy things forever. And I want to prove eventually that I can do things that are cool in and of themselves, that are my own ideas. And that was like a step in that direction, to just do something with my take on it, at least, without any art director touching it. And like that helped, and I'm slowly like, and now I'm finally doing that. But it's really like hard, it's a hard thing to do. Like Dan was saying, you have all these people with the same exact portfolio. They're just the job.
It's this is something we talked about earlier, and I want to say this flat out before we get into it. I'm not shit talking any of these companies that I might mention. I'm really glad that they're hiring people. I'm glad that they're paying people. They're institutions, and they have to have standards. I'm talking about the nature of the business, not an individual company. But I keep seeing in the chat like, well, this doesn't apply to me because I've wanted to do Magic the Gathering since I was 6 years old, and it's my dream job. But here's the thing. Do you know what your dream job pays? And what's your dream lifestyle? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have a house? Do you want to have a car? Do you want to have health insurance? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to send those kids to college? If you want to do any of that, you're not going to make enough money doing Magic the Gathering to pay for that. You have to have something else in the pot. The amount of money that you're making is relative to the kind of life you want to have. Do you want to have savings? These jobs don't pay that much. You're not going to be able to do like 20 at a time. That's the thing, is like, that's the solution most people say is like, well, if it doesn't pay much, I'll just do more of it. But then it's like, you don't have any time anymore to enjoy any of the things that you're making the money to do. So what's the fucking point? It cancels itself out. And then number two, these companies aren't going to be like, oh, you want to do 20 cards this month? Here's 20 cards. It's never going to happen. That's the thing, is like, you might, like, there's jobs that were my dream job. Some of them don't exist anymore, and some of the ones that I really thought I wanted to do, I started doing them and I went, oh, I hate this. Like, when I started, I really wanted to be a video game concept artist. That was the dream. And then I did a few freelance video game jobs. I worked with a couple studios as a freelancer doing character design. And I went, oh, this is nothing at all like what I thought it was going to be, and the pay isn't very great. Like, granted, yeah, I could get a salary job with pretty good money at a studio somewhere and do that, but it's not the job I thought it was. It's all art by committee now, and it's all based on what sells, 95% of the time. When I got into this, that's not the job I thought I was signing up for, so why would I do it? That's the thing, is like, the job that I thought I was going to get doesn't exist.
Yeah, and then it's a matter of what I was talking about, where it's not so much, it's getting that stuff, but how do you move past it? And that's what I wanted to talk about. Where, I was talking about the lifestyle. You just keep going and going and going and going, and how I'm 6 years into freelancing, and for the longest time I was just like a slave to it. Where, like Dan said, you can't just do those jobs and live. You can live as good a life as like any other person with a normal job, if you have that.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing better than average, definitely. But for the amount of time you put into learning that, the amount of time you put into like just studies and work ethic, and building up this, just crazy willpower to sit down all day and do this shit, it's not worth it. And I'm saying that, like, you always need to find ways to break away. So it's like a never-ending thing. And until, rates change, and there are companies doing it,
right.
They're coming in, they're making competing rates, they're going to change how the industry works. But for the time being, there's a handful of them that pay really well. And sadly, everybody has to go and do that. And then you have all these people that do the same stuff. So, aside from the fact that a job might not pay enough to support a healthy lifestyle, it's like you also need to find a way to make yourself seen.
Right.
Where you will, and this comes back to that idea of, well, we're talking about that solitary work ethic thing that pulls you away from people, where you're going to have to, if you want to get away from it, do something for yourself that is totally you. If you have that, if you have that idea that you know what people want, you come into it and you're like, okay, well, now this is really me and this is really cool. And that will hopefully be the thing that pulls you out of that lifestyle and into one where you're making a lot more money and you're able to live a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, far and away, when people do that, it's usually the thing that gets them where they want to go. It's just getting to a point where you're financially stable enough and have enough people that know who you are and have the skill set to execute properly enough to do that. It takes so much time to get to a point where you can take that leap of faith. Because, like, if I was to do my PR stunt right now and be like, I'm going to do exactly what I always thought I was going to do and I'm going to put it out there and hopefully people will love it, I'm not good enough to do that yet. It will backfire. I'll quit doing the jobs I'm doing. I'll put a bunch of time into it. I'll release it, and it won't work because my skill isn't there yet. That's the thing. Is like there's so many things that have to be in place before you can finally take that lunge. It's crazy trying to get there. And the other thing is relative to pay is like another thing that people don't think about is that the amount of money you're getting paid isn't just a flat fee. It's relative to the amount of debt you've stacked up trying to get there. So if you're listening to this and you haven't started the freelance path yet, understand that in the first 2 years, you're probably going to be in debt or breaking even. Most likely you'll be in debt unless you're living at home, which, there's no shame in that. But the thing is that like if your dream is to get to a job that only pays 800 per image or 1,000 per image, as a number alone, you might think that that's impressive for where you're at. But if you stack up $20,000 worth of debt before you get to that point, that's really a small number, especially if you're going to school and you have student loans. The amount of money you're making is always relative to the amount of money that you owe. You got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and the only point I'm really trying to make is that, I mean, I'm basically just talking about my life right now and how it could apply to people who are working to things. This is anything that I've learned in the past 6 years of doing freelance. It's just that the things that are going to get you there aren't the jobs you think you're dreaming of doing. And that's why you bring up about how these jobs, they're not a means to an end. They're not the thing that's going to fulfill your life. And they may seem like common sense, but a lot of people really believe it.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, they're enjoyable, but if you really want to, have the ability to like live out, like a Brahm life, it's right. Like you need to find that point where you're able to break away and just start creating something.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, like Bane's question earlier, he said, he asked this, I kind of already answered it, but I just want to emphasize for anyone listening. Dan, what's your guys' take on just setting aside time to do your own pieces that you've always wanted to do, like how Dave did the Red Ranger piece and people were talking about it, or Levisi with that Last Man Standing? There's like 3 things that you need in place to do that. Because, okay, if you're a beginner and you've just started freelancing and, you're on forums but no one really knows who you are, you haven't done any major client work yet, the answer to this question is totally different for you than it would be for someone who's in a better position. Basically, you have to have the necessary skill to do what you want to do very well. It has to be good. The quality has to be there. Number 2, you have to have an audience because the best rendered, piece of art with no one to see it isn't going to make a ripple when you put it out there. And the third thing you need is some kind of reputation. People need to know who you are. Clients need to know that you've done work for other people. You need to have some kind of thing in place where they know that if they hire you, you're not just some guy who really enjoys drawing this particular thing. You're able to work for companies. You're able to turn things around. You have something in place. So you got to be a professional. You got to have an audience. And you got to have the skill. And the amount of time it takes to get the skill let alone build an audience, let alone do enough client work that people are going to take you seriously, is unbelievable. There's artists out there I'm not going to name because I don't want to talk shit about anybody. They're some of the best artists that I think exist today doing what we're doing. They're some of my favorite people. I love their images. And I hear stories about them getting fired from companies because they're not fast enough, they're not reliable enough. They really, really do amazing images when it's something they're into, but when they have to take art direction from an AD, they just bomb. And it's like, even though they're phenomenal, no one's hiring them because they don't have the reputation in place of clients. Those three things are so insanely important that every single one is just as important as the other. If you do amazing work but you can't work with other people, professional suicide. You know what I mean? Like if you're fantastic with other people but your skills aren't there and you're not working on them, professional suicide. So if you want to set time aside to do something you really love, like Dave did with the Ninja Turtles, we were talking about this earlier. If Dave did those Ninja Turtles portraits 2 years before he did them, nobody would have given a fuck. No one would have cared because he didn't have the skills and he didn't have the audience. He wasn't good enough at painting, and not enough people knew who he was. So
Yeah.
if you're doing work all the time and you feel pretty confident about your skill and you've got some pretty high level jobs and you're thinking about taking a leap, take the leap. Chances are it's going to work out. But if you're a beginner and no one really knows who you are yet and your skills aren't really developed, like you're 1 year into freelance and you don't really know what you're doing, that's professional suicide, and it could potentially end your career because if you're in debt and you take the time off to do that and it backfires, you've completely fucked yourself. That's the thing, is like you have to think about this stuff. It's not, none of this is stuff you can do on a whim. Ever.
Yeah, and this is basically coming back to that thing about casually doing something like this, where you know, and again, the idea I'm trying to get across, and me and Dan, isn't that this is like, not that you should 100% avoid it. It's that we're just talking about it. You know, we just want to talk about it.
Right.
Because it's a thing that just happens.
Because this is the thing, you're going to encounter this at some point, and this is like the whole thing behind daggers anyway, is like, I wish I had heard someone had this conversation before I started, because then I would have known it was coming. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's like, what's scarier? A curvy road with a cliff on it with no signs, or seeing a sign that says there's a curvy road with a cliff coming up? Like, you want the sign. So we're not trying to say don't do the work. We're not trying to say this is horrible. We're just having a discussion based on things we've seen, hoping that other people understand, warning people that might not have encountered it yet. It's just a discussion.
Yeah, and that question about how conscious was it that the TMNT things were marketing, it was 100% conscious.
Yeah.
I did that on purpose. All of that stuff was on purpose. I wanted to really break away from the work I was doing.
Right.
And that's all it was. And that's what I'm saying, is like, there comes a point, I've been conscious of pretty much most of, my roads. Like, my road through freelance, I've been aware of what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always the right way. It wasn't always, perfect. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. But I had a general idea that I would work my way up through the lower sort of tier companies. I would get up to the one that I know everybody knows, Magic, and that I would eventually get up to doing like book covers and, whatever. And then after that, I would do something to show who I am, using that ability to, paint that I've developed over time and been able to get to work with. And that was my whole idea, was that, and then somehow that would shoot me into my own direction. And that happened. But I do think you need something like that. You need a plan. If you go into it and you're just like, there needs to be some end to it. I mean, like, I couldn't imagine walking into this and only doing magic cards the rest of my life. I think I'd quit. I mean, I would just quit doing art. Like, I don't like art that much. I don't like art that much that I would do nothing but the same format, same kind of stuff for the same client forever.
Yeah, and I think
I can't do that.
See, this is the thing, is that I hate to use this term, but I hope people understand I'm using it, just honestly. But because everything is so structured, and the fees are so structured, and the stuff people are willing to pay, and what quality deserves what amount of money, the fact that all these companies have stacked up over the past 10 years and decided what level of talent is worth what dollar sign, you get brainwashed. That's the term. And I think this happens to tons of people is that once they get to something like Magic or they get to another card game or they get to book covers through a company that does them and they say, "Okay, this is the highest paying stuff that I know of. This is the rate." They do so much of it and they do so much in that format and they accept so many paychecks from those people that they don't realize that they could do other stuff that pays more, that has more freedom. I don't think they realize that at a certain point they could just do something for themselves and make their own individual career. I think they get so bogged down in the routine of I'm going to do this job to get this much money until I can jump to the next job and get that much money, until I can jump to that job and get that much money until I get to the top. And they're so concerned with getting to the top that once they get there, they've completely forgotten what they were trying to do at the bottom. So they've brainwashed themselves into just being complacent with this is my job now. This is what I do. If I need more money, then I will spend less. Like, it's that's what happens.
Yeah, it's like talking about balance this whole time here and there. It's hard to. It's definitely a hard thing to get down. I like I was saying, like I'm into that right now. I'm trying to figure out a balance. I'm coming out of a place where I'm 5 years. Like from the time I set the goal, which was like my first year into freelance, where I had like some sort of plan, to now where I have freedom. It's like I sacrificed a lot of stuff. Uh, I still have friends, like old friends and stuff, but I didn't make the real life connections I probably should have. And I'm in a place where the industry doesn't necessarily exist. I'm on the East Coast in Boston, There's really not a lot of people out here. I don't have a girlfriend anymore.
There you go.
And an amazing girlfriend.
Yeah, so it's like so this is a lifestyle. This isn't a job. That's the thing that I think is the crux of this is like it's it's not a job. It's not something like we were talking about earlier where like, I did my 9 hours today and that's considered overtime because most people only do 8. I can go home and feel satisfied. No, if the job's not done and it's due the next day, you're not sleeping because guess what? Your reputation's going to take a hit if you don't do that. No one's going to fucking hire you. There's no borders. It's like, a regular job is like bumper bowling. This is like, there's gutters everywhere. You gotta watch out. You really gotta watch out. There's no safety zone because you're your own boss. It's like if it's not done, it's not done. You gotta finish it. And if it just looks like shit, if you just finished it to a lower standard, you're literally every new piece you put out, if you're trying to make a serious portfolio, people consider that your most recent piece is probably your best because you have the most skill, you've spent the most time. This is, your new thing. And trust me when I say this, even if I hate a job, even if I really cringe when I read the prompt, nothing in this entire world feels worse to me than investing your entire life into doing art and then turning out a mediocre product. It feels fucking awful. To make this your thing and to be striving to get to the top and to invest all this shit into it, to then turn out a bad product just because you didn't have enough time or you didn't like it enough, it feels gross, man. I've lost sleep over it. I've like asked for extra time. I've told them like, you don't have to pay me what you were going to pay me because I really don't like this. Like it, it doesn't happen as much anymore because I take my career very seriously now and I'm completely 100% invested in it. But like, trust me, you never want to do that. It feels awful, and people will hate you for doing it. They know it's not your best. They can see your portfolio. You know what I mean? Like, you sent them every piece you've done that you think is good to get the job. If you give them something that's less than that, they're probably not going to hire you again. And they probably know other people that do this, and they're probably going to tell them. So it's like, what I'm saying is like, if you have a regular job, you put the time in, you do a good enough job to not be fired, and you leave, and that's good. If you do a better than normal job, you still adhere to the same hours and you advance in the company. When you're doing this, it's all or nothing all the time. If it's not done, you got to do it. It's just like, it doesn't have that healthiness that a real job has.
No, and the other side of it is that if you only did the set amount of hours that you kind of plan for yourself all the time,
Yeah.
then how do you get better? How do you move on? Like, how do you keep going?
But I mean
You know,
yeah,
it's
it's
hard to do
100
that.
it's 100% true. And like
It's like you need to actually, you need to actually like push yourself more on each thing that comes your way, because if you're thinking about it in terms of your life and like what importance do you put on your time,
yeah.
and what does it mean to you to it's like, are you running a marathon or are you in a sprint?
Yeah.
It's just like,
And I mean,
sure, you grow over time, but you got to really like pick it up on each thing if you want to be noticed and you want to move forward.
and if you don't really understand what we're talking about, or you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'd keep a schedule, this wouldn't happen to me. Just think about this. Eventually, you're going to be at a point where no one client's going to be giving you enough money to make a living. So you're going to have multiple clients. Every freelancer I've ever known or talked to in the entire world has multiple clients. That's just the nature of this. So basically, what happens is, that's an admirable thing. It feels good to say, like, I'm going to work 9 hours a day, and that's enough. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to be the exception to the rule. It's my job, but I'm not going to kill myself for it. It's like, okay, great. That's really admirable. Good for you. But then what happens if it's just not done? What happens if for some reason you get a prompt and this one just isn't good? You're having a bad week. It's something way outside your comfort zone. You don't really know how to execute it. It just doesn't look good. If that's not done by the deadline, you're not sleeping. You have to get it done because you're your own boss. You can't take that hit. So then if you're on a schedule with other clients, the amount of time you've put into doing that, you've now fucked up your sleep schedule. You have to work extra hard to get the next thing out because you put extra time into the thing before it. It's a traffic jam. I mean, I don't know anyone who does this that hasn't gone through that. I'm in the middle of it right now. Dave went through it a while ago, and I remember when he went through it. But everyone I know who's done this seriously gets to that traffic jam part of the career where it's like, wow, this all has to be done on these dates. I don't know what I'm gonna do, and it's
Yeah,
just
but
this.
but the crazy thing about that position is I remember being in it, and the one problem with that is when you find yourself in, like a Dan saying, a traffic jam, where I was in that. I remember being in that a bunch of times, and I'd have like 5 clients. The problem isn't that the problem isn't with the clients. That was the one thing I had to realize. I can't be mad at the clients. I can't be mad at the fact that it takes me 5 clients to pay my bills. It's me.
Yep.
That was the way I saw it. So it would be like, okay, so here's the crazy thing that happens now, is that I am doing all of these jobs. I might not even have enough time to finish them and be perfect, to be doing what I want to do, what I think I could do with the level I'm at. So on top of that, it's like you have to be, and this is just a cautionary tale, to study and to be on a steady regimen of studying. It's like,
Yeah.
study in the mornings for a couple hours. But for me, I remember being in that position, and that's why I started the Crimson Daggers group, was because I was scared that I would never dig myself out of this hole. The hole being that I wasn't good enough to move forward. I wasn't good enough to do magic or book covers or things that were going to pay me significantly more than these jobs. And I had to, on top of the 5 or 6 jobs, do 2 to 3 hours of studies every day. And I was doing that and all those jobs to hopefully get better, get good enough to be able to move away from that lifestyle, which I eventually did. But yeah, I mean, that's a thing that it's a hard kind of trap to find yourself in. And like we were talking about earlier, where if you have if you're young, or if you have some time, or if you go on the internet a lot or whatever, it's like, cut that out, do some studies in the morning or whatever for a couple hours a day.
Yeah.
And always make sure you're trying to avoid a place where you're going to be kind of like screwed, because you want to be able to move past that stuff. And that's you'll always find yourself in that situation.
And it's like getting back to like the what happens as you go. I mean, like, I'm already losing sight of why I got into this. I had all these amazing things that I wanted to do, and all these ideas that I thought were really great, and I've been working so much that it's like, thank God I sketched them out and I wrote them down. But even with that, it's like I look at them and I'm like, this isn't how I would have done it a year ago. I'm so in the mindset of needing to get work and needing to look like all these other people to get the work because everything's so standardized now that all the personality's gone. How do I get the personality back? It's like I don't want to draw a generic knight 55 that looks like every card I've ever seen in my entire life. I want to do the thing that I wanted to do before I got into this labyrinth of freelance. It's like, what do you do? Because the thing, I mean, like, I wrote this down when me and Dave were talking before we came live, but...
I gotta go for a second.
Oh, it's cool.
I'll be back in a second.
But it's like, very few people, next to no one, cares about good ideas that are drawn badly. No one cares about that. You could have the best idea in the world, and if you don't have the skill to draw it, no one cares. That's just the thing, is just like that in this industry, in other industries maybe not, but in concept art it's like, oh yeah, great, but it looks like shit. But unfortunately the flip of that is very much true as well. Tons of people care about bad ideas that are drawn well. If you have a really, you see it all the time. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to shit talk like crazy, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You see the worst designs in the world coming out for games, for cards, on books, all kinds of stuff. They're just bad designs. They're bad. But they have really good anatomy. The light's correct. There's textures that are the textures of the materials. It's like everything's so correct, but it feels sterile. You know what I mean? It's so focused on being correct that it's not good. It's like all these people, I mean, it's happening to me. Dave went through it. I'm hoping some of you guys have gone through it so you know what I'm talking about, and I'm not just ranting. But it's like you get so concerned with getting better and impressing these clients that you get to a point where it's autopilot. That's all you're turning out. It's just like, you don't even think about it. Honestly, it's like muscle memory. You get in such a routine of doing it that eventually it's all you do because you think that that's the only thing that's going to sell. You're like, I gotta, start with perfect anatomy. It's got to be flawless. I'm going to put the armor on that looks like real armor from history. It's going to be 100% accurate. It's going to look like all these other games that sold because they want to see something marketable. I'm going to put rim light on it because rim light makes things pop. It's almost like a checklist of like, I got to satisfy everything on this checklist before this is done. And what happens is everything is just kind of gray. It's like this big wash, not in terms of the color, but like it's this big wash of mediocre, similar looking stuff. It's like the best executed, most accurate, most correct, boring pieces of shit I've ever seen. It's like, look how awesome the muscles are on that guy that does not interest me at all. It's just weird. It's like you focus so much on getting it marketable that there's nothing left. There's nothing left. I mean, you're going to do it for a minimum of 3 years to get any kind of good job. And after those 3 years of rolling with all those punches and doing the same thing over and over again and trying to impress clients on top of clients on top of clients, when you get to the end of it, most people are just on autopilot. I know it's been happening to me. But, are you back? Dave's not back yet. But yeah, it's just like, I mean, ideally we would all make portfolios that we thought were representations of what we wanted to be, and the jobs that needed us would find us. But everything has become standardized to the point where you have to look like all these other people or you're not going to get it. So, I mean, that's out the window. It's totally out the window.
Hey.
What's up?
What were you just talking about?
I was talking about the few people care about good ideas drawn badly, but everybody loves a bad idea drawn well, because we've gotten to this point where the only people getting the jobs are the ones that focus on getting the things correct instead of interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, so you see the best anatomy, best, most accurate armored, boring piece of shit in the world.
I drew a girl in lingerie covered in magic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how many times have you seen a girl... Exactly. How many times have you seen a girl drawn in fucking, Victoria's Secret underwear casting a spell. That's
Just
not a
offending blanket statements.
that's not a good design. It's just a thing that's marketable. It's like, but it's not the art. It's not even the artist's fault. It's the fact
No,
that this has
it's not.
been, yeah, it's been standardized. It's like, it's that's the term, because it's like standardized tests. It's like, it reminds me of being in high school. It's like, you're only going to pass this test and go to college if you know all the answers to these 50 questions and you repeat them 20,000 times. Like, there's no room for error. There's no room for originality. You go in and it's just filling in C, D, A, C, B, A, C. Like, it's soulless. Oh my god. I don't know. I'm full of coffee.
Yeah. No, I wanted to talk about the good side of it,
Yeah. There is a great side of it.
because I don't want this to just be some shitty shit talk fest about,
Exactly.
freelance. So after we talked about the whole side, all that, whatever.
Yeah.
Right now, I can tell you where I work my way to, which is, obviously, it's a never-ending thing. You know, even though all that stuff happened, I'm taking next month off, and I'm gonna leave and just like travel and shit, and that's a thing I can do now. I couldn't have done that, 2 years ago, but now, I can afford to live a different life. Dan's in the opposite place. Dan's like, I did exactly what Dan's doing now. It's not all bad. It's What's funny is coming around to a place where you have freedom. Like, I have freedom now. I can do my own properties. I can do like a handful of jobs and be fine. And, I can do them pretty quick. And now it's more like I mentioned this on, I was talking to people on Facebook about this, where I was talking about how I basically am like re-entering the human race.
Yeah.
Where I finally have like and it's not like I finally have it and it's just this year. It's that I've been like a workaholic because of that lifestyle forever.
Just to be totally candid, I want you guys to understand this before Dave continues. Me and Dave had a 4-hour conversation last week. 4 hours without a break. Okay? No, really, I want you guys to hear this and understand it. Me and Dave had a 4-hour conversation about how do you talk to people. That was the topic. How do you go out and talk to human beings? Is there an art to it that we've forgotten? Is it like a chess game? Can you just say something to someone? Because there's some things you can't say, but what are they? Why are they? We're completely out of touch. Dave's trying to re-enter the world, but I'm still in Vietnam. You know what I mean? So, like, Dave's trying to go out and do something he hasn't done in 5 years. And, how do you do that?
Yeah, and I don't even want to say, like, I think it's deceptive to say that, like, I couldn't have done any of this shit. What I'm really saying is that I really wanted it. And I was so into it that I became a workaholic. And throughout the years, I didn't make time for stuff. And it was out of, like, it was a motivation. And, it was mixed with stress and, just some, like, fear that I wouldn't be able to do the things I wanted to do. Or that somebody would beat me to doing the things I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd always be working at it. And it's been a while of me kind of pushing back from that and trying to like reestablish a sort of like normal way of living where I'm not just constantly working. Like, I'm here by myself. I got my dog, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm realizing now, like, not to be dramatic or get into anything.
Be dramatic.
I don't want to be dramatic, but I broke up with my girlfriend, and she was like my like lifeline into the real world. And you know, I always kind of like had that, and it's more like a safety than anything else. So I basically like I kind of like basically like took advantage of that, where I would have that sort of. It was almost like an excuse that I would be doing things. You know what I mean? It was like that she was there, so it was okay that I worked all the time. You know.
Yep.
And that's totally the wrong thing, because now that she's not around, I'm like, oh shit, I have to face reality all of a sudden. And the reality of it is that I let myself drift because of some goal that I could never really achieve, you know?
Yeah.
It's not a thing I would get to. I'd get to one part of it, but there would always be another thing. You know, that's the kind of goal that doesn't have an end. You just keep going and going and going. And I'm doing that now, though, or I'm having to be like facing, you know, I have to face reality and go out and do stuff. So now I'm experiencing the good side of freelance, where I'm like, whoa, like I wasn't even thinking before, you know? Like I wasn't even really thinking about what I had. I became this workaholic, and I think this happens because of people who, you know, study all the time, work towards something, and then forget how to do other things. You know, I've known a lot of those kind of people who do art. You know, a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of people who do that stuff. I don't think it's too uncommon.
Yeah.
Because of what this job really like entails. You know, guys who are almost like uncomfortable stopping working, but you have so much freedom. And the other thing about it is that if you go out and you plan to do something ahead of time, you'll usually compensate and make time for it, and you'll finish the things faster because you know you have something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm doing now. And it's realizing all of a sudden that there is a lot of freedom in freelance, and it's not just this, you know, chained to your desk kind of thing. Which is, it's relieving. It's stressful at the same time because I am such a workaholic that it's hard to like break away from that. But it's really good to know that I'm not in that position anymore where I need to like be crazy stressed. And that I really wasn't for a long time. I just kind of made myself work towards some, you know, ambiguous goal, like being able to produce my own stuff. And that, you know, even that in and of itself, where now I can work on stuff like my Skull and Shark book I'm working on, you know, with Dan. Dan's helping. And it's like, you know, it wasn't that stuff couldn't happen before, is that I was like, you know, I think a lot of freelancers, you have sort of almost like a fear of stopping.
Yeah.
Trying to like advance. Like you're seeing all these artists around you doing really cool things, and you think, I need to be like them. It's coming back to the thing Dan was talking about trying to rise up to each sort of job.
Yeah.
Where you see this new thing that is, I guess, marketable, and you know will make money, and you know that if you do it, you'll get there.
But it's
and
like
you see that, and you want to work towards it.
Yeah, I mean, until you break through that kind of ceiling and take that leap and do your own thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys realize this, but this is something else that bothers me. You're literally, until you jump out and become your own thing, until you have enough ability, you know, audience and reputation to do that, you're defined by your job in this very strict kind of ladder that we're in, because there's only so many companies. So, like, if someone drops a name and they're like, oh, have you seen his work? And I go, oh, I don't know that name. Who is he? 9 times out of 10, they don't describe who the person is. They say, oh, he's a magic guy. And I know in my mind that, oh, this is what his work is going to look like when I open it up, because that's their standards and that's what their stuff looks like. If someone says, like, oh, you know, he's a Paizo guy, he's a Pathfinder guy, like right now that's what I am, that my work's of that level, so that's what people describe me as. If someone says, like, oh, you know, he's working for, you know, he's one of these dudes, I don't have to see their portfolio. I already know what's in it. That's the craziest thing, is like, as you're climbing that ladder of freelance, because it is a ladder, you're literally defined by the rung that you're on. You might have little stylistic changes or some personality, but your work is going to mostly look like that company's standard because you're going to be art directed to do that. That's what's going to happen. It's kind of inevitable. But then when you get to that point where you can take that step, that's when you become a name. That's when it's like, oh, that guy who does that thing that he does. You know what I mean? It's like that's the only point where you really get to that.
Yeah, and I'm really only like you know, like at this point I'm really only allowing myself to sort of take advantage of everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't let myself do it for a while. But like I will say, like when you take a step back and you look at everything and you kind of like, you have to kind of go through and figure out, like what you're spending your time on, what you're focused on, and sort of like, like reassess what you want to do.
This is a good
like
question.
All the time, and then and then like once you've done that, you can start to like, I don't know, basically like live a more directed life instead of just being like seeing, like I was saying before, seeing new stuff and then working towards it.
Okay, so here's a question that I love because this is a two-sided question, like all
copycats thing.
Okay, do you guys have problems with copycats? This is something you might not consider. I'm gonna try and illuminate this. Think about this as I say it. Okay. Dave has a problem with copycats because he's good enough that people want to copy him. I have a problem with copycats because I'm not good enough and companies want me to look like other people. I have to be a copycat to survive. Dave has to kill copycats to survive. Think about
I don't even
that.
care about that stuff.
Okay. I know that you don't care, but most people do. I'm just saying, think about the division between that, though. I'm at a point in my career where my skills aren't at a certain level. So if a company doesn't hire me, 9 times out of 10, they go, we were really looking for somebody who does work more like Tyler Jacobson, or we really want somebody who wants, we really want this look that looks like Brad Rigney. So then I have to go, I can be Brad Rigney, and then I can do it, I can copy him. No, you can hire me, trust me, I'll do it. Like, I have to be the copycat to survive. And Dave had to do that too. But now that Dave's, up at the top of the ladder kind of thing, other people are like, I can be a Dave Rapoza. Please hire me. Companies that hired Dave Rapoza. Like, that's the thing, is that he's the guy that they're talking about. They tell me, you got to look more like Dave or we're not going to hire you. Dave's up at the top going, I wish these people would stop looking like me. It's a two-sided thing. For a long time, you have to be a copycat or no one's going to hire you because it's standardized, like I was saying before. They want, Dungeons & Dragons has a look. It might be a little more expansive than other companies, but there's still limits. You got to be inside this circle of accepted styles, and it has to fit, or they're not going to hire you. So if you're outside that circle and you need to work for them to get a certain amount of money, guess what? You're going to have to be a copycat. That's what's going to happen. You got to do it. So every artist has a copycat somewhere. I mean, you're either being one or you're being plagued by them. But
yeah, I mean, basically, like a style guide is telling you who to be.
Yeah.
I mean, like if it's very specific, sometimes they're open. But if it's really specific, it's just saying like here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
this guy.
It's like if you want to work for Blizzard, like someone just dropped Blizzard. Yeah. Guess what? You're probably not Samwise, but you're gonna have to learn how to do that. Like, that's the thing, is like, if you want to work for every company has a thing. That's the thing, is like, you want to work for League of Legends, guess what? They have a style guide. You want to work for Legend of the Cryptids, guess what? They have a style guide. All these, that's the thing, is that the term copycat has a negative connotation, but for 90% of your career, because getting there is 90%, that's a necessity. It's a necessary evil. You got to copy tons of people, or you're not going to survive. That's the marketability.
The other side of that, though, is that, I mean, like the flip side of being a copycat is that, like, you don't need to be necessarily, like, if you're not doing freelance, I feel like it's easy for you to walk into a place, like somebody mentioned Keikai.
Yeah.
Where if you're a part of a concept art team that is basically, like, establishing all that stuff, you can still be you.
Yeah.
Like, they want you to be yourself. But freelancing and doing the kind of jobs we're talking about, Those are usually style guides.
I mean, and the other
Established
thing,
stuff.
I mean, there are exceptions, like David just saying. There definitely are exceptions where occasionally a startup company will really want an original style. But the other thing that I find really funny, because I've had to be a part of this, I'm not going to say the company's name, but earlier in the summer, I did like 30 character designs for this sci-fi game, and I never showed them publicly because I wasn't happy with how they turned out. But the thing is that they came at me and they were like, "You've got to, we really want to hire a bunch of artists to work on creating a unique style for our game. We want it to be original and unique, unique and original, original and." They just kept saying the words over and over again. So then I agreed to do it, and then they were like, "So we really want original concepts on sci-fi characters, and we really want them to look like Mobius." And I was like, "Whoa, what?" And they were like, "Mobius' style is really original, so we want it to look like that." And I was like, "Holy shit, you don't even know what you're doing." They're like, "We hired you to be original, so please look like this original guy." It's like, oh my god, what are you doing? It's like, we can't afford the guy who's really original, so we're going to hire you to be original for him. It's like, whoa, what? It's just this huge
job.
Yeah. And then there's other jobs I've done where they're like, we have a really original vision in mind. We want our style to be super original and unique. And then I agree to do it, and they're like, "So what we're thinking is, Guild Wars has Kekai Kitaki, and Magic has Brad Rigney, but we want you to be Brad Kitaki, and that's original." And I'm like, "No, it's not. It's two things that exist that you're thrown into a pot." Like, it's so crazy, the people that do that. They're like, "Well, we can't afford Marco Djurdjevic, and we can't afford Koro Kaufman, but we want you to be Koro Djurdjevic." And I'm like, "No." It's just insane when they do that. Like, it's original because it's two things that already exist that have never been combined before. That's not originality. That's stealing from two people instead of one and hoping that they don't notice. It's dropping your chances of getting caught by 50%, but you're still ripping people off.
Yeah, it's funny. That's a big part of freelance. I always used to get like that stuff, and then I wouldn't.
It's almost like
I always tried to avoid that.
Like Airbrush just asked a question: "Is it always like that?" No, there's exceptions to everything, but almost always.
They were
yes.
really good clients. Like
There are, yeah. There's great clients.
Like even like one of my first jobs, they had me like come up with tons of my own kind of character designs that were pretty open, and I enjoyed some of it. But like, nothing is like where I'm at right now. Like nothing's like this. Like nothing's like this where I can, without any sort of like need to feel, like comforted, where I need to, like a lot of people I think can relate to this, where you feel like you need to have done something in the day with work, or else you feel kind of like trash. You feel kind of shitty for taking the time off, especially if you're a freelancer. You feel like almost a little guilty.
Yeah.
So to not have that feeling anymore, and to like sit down and work on like my own properties and stuff is really crazy. Like there's literally like nothing, like it's worth digging through all the crap for that. Right. Like getting through all the shitty jobs, like you can definitely like there's definitely hope for everybody.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing, is that, it always gets better. It's going to get better. It takes a lot of time, and it can be very frustrating on the way getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, I would encourage just like, this may sound weird. I mean, it's not weird, but like having if you are doing this, like the same way we started doing like the daggers thing, and I don't know if Dan's gonna keep doing it.
I'm gonna try, because I'm going insane and I need it.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. It's good to have community, to establish community amongst people doing what you do, just to like talk about stuff like this. Like talking about this and getting it out in the open. It's like like for me, like I was talking about coming into the new kind of lifestyle I'm in, where I'm having to sort of like reestablish myself as like not just a workaholic. It's difficult, and it's nice to talk to people because, you know, in the scale of the whole world, there's not a lot of people doing this.
No.
And nobody really gets it. You know, like it's such a strange job. The way you have to get to the place where you're going to be at is hard to do, and there's not a lot of things to compare it to for other people to, you know, to relate and, you know, listen to what you have to say. So to like have an online community and have people to talk to is a real stress reliever. Like right now, I feel a lot better just talking to you guys. I'm not even talking to you. I can't hear your voices or anything. It just feels good to, you know, at first vent about stuff the whole time I've been doing this, and then to, you know, come back, reminisce about it, and realize what I have now. You know, it's nice to get stuff off your chest or just hear somebody else who gets it.
Yeah, it's like basically what happened. I mean, Dave started Daggers. He did it for a long time. He stopped because he got too much work and he couldn't keep doing it. I picked it up when I got out of college. I did it till I had too much work and I couldn't fit in the stream every day. But then this weird thing happened where it was like, because I wasn't I wasn't studying as much because I didn't have time. I had too much work to study. You know, God forbid I should ever turn down a job. So my work started to stagnate because I was being too successful. It's weird. It's a weird thing to wrap your head around. And then it's like, I couldn't stream as much, so I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't vent. I didn't have, you know, I isolated myself. And I live alone. I've been living alone for like almost a whole year now. And like when you're not having a regular outlet, it's like, you ever seen like Das Boot? You ever seen that movie where like they're down in the sub and like somebody drops like a pin and you can hear it like it's like boom, and everyone's looking around like, oh, something happening? Like I wake up in the middle of the night and I hear a board creak and I stare at the ceiling and I just watch my fan blades go around it and I'm like, maybe the ceiling will collapse. Maybe this is how I die. Like it gets that weird when you don't do anything and you're alone. It's just like crazy. It's like it's really weird. It's like I'm gonna try and start streaming daily again. I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna do it. I can't give you an exact date. I have to get this one job out of the way. It's my last one on my docket. This has been my plan for like weeks now. Once I get all these jobs I took on out of the way, I can get back into an old routine again. So I've got one more. I had to kill 7 jobs. I have 1 job left. So early February I should be back to it. But like, man, it's just like so weird.
Well, we're doing something similar. We're trying to find an office space that we can go to and work at.
Yeah.
Like Dan's been alone for
a year.
So long.
A year.
Just a year straight inside working.
Yeah. I think I've gone to see Dave maybe 5 times, and that's it. That's the only access I've had to the world.
Yeah, it's like
It's not good.
I'm like just starting to be alone.
Yeah, Dave's
like
I
hate it.
See, it drives me because Dave calls me and he's like, "Man, I just feel weird being alone." I'm like, "Oh, on day 10?" And my eye on day 10? My eye starts twitching. Oh, that must be crazy. And then I turn around and I look at my statue of a penguin and I'm like, Dave's feeling lonely. Dave's feeling very lonely on day 10. And then I cry.
Exactly. I don't know how you did it. I would have. I don't know. Something dark would have happened by now. I'm surprised that you just don't stand in your window with like naked, just holding onto the edges of the wide open, just waiting to fall out.
Like things happen. You start talking to yourself. You start laughing for no reason. Here's what I started to do involuntarily. This is gonna get dark quick. Okay, this is gonna get dark real quick. This is something I started doing without realizing I was doing it. When I say that, it was never a conscious moment in my brain. There was never a spark in my mind that said, let's do this series of actions that leads to a result, and it will be funny. That never happened. It's something, it was like breathing. My mind just did it to get rid of some kind of tension without me having anything to do with it. No part of my consciousness. But I started doing this thing, and I realized I had done it several times, maybe upwards of 30, without realizing I was doing it, until I noticed myself doing it. It's horrible. Here we go. It's horrible. Whenever I would walk into the bathroom, I would turn and look at the mirror and make a face, and then turn the light on so I could see myself making the face. And I go, yeah, like make a noise, and then I'd use the bathroom. And I didn't realize I was doing that until one day my like phone rang while I was doing it, and it snapped me out of the spell. And I was like, "What are you doing?" Like I walked in on myself doing something shameful, and I was like, "Oh wait, I don't see people so much that I had to be the person I see." I get it. It was dark. It was dark. It was like 3 in the morning. I was like shirtless, rolling out of bed. I walked into the bathroom, turned towards the mirror in the dark, made a face, turned on the light, went man, and I was like, "Oh, I'm naked in the dark at 3 a.m. and I've been alone for 10 months, and I'm in my sexual prime." Like it gets weird. But yeah, don't live alone if you're doing this. Don't do it. Not like this.
Not like this.
Not like this. No, it gets bad, man. It gets really bad.
I used to love that. Like, I remember the first time I like experienced any sort of like weird freelance craziness was when I was in like the worst of like I was in the worst of like all the jobs I was doing. I was in a horrible situation, paying way too much for bills and stuff. And I was up in New Hampshire in a house, and it was the dead of winter. And
The Shining.
My girlfriend had left. And I was there for like over a month alone, and it was like during a snowstorm, so I couldn't leave. I remember staring out the window like I was an actor, like dead-faced stare, staring at the snow, because I thought it was funny in my head that I was being like Jack Nicholson from The Shining.
Yep.
Except that nobody else was there to laugh at it.
Yep.
And then I was like, wait, I am Jack Nicholson from The Shining.
It's like if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around, does it make a sound? If you tell a joke and no one's there to hear it, are you really telling a joke?
Yeah, it's like, I was like, wait, this is real.
Yeah, it's not a joke if there's no audience. You're just living in hell. That's like, and that's what happens is like, I'll catch myself talking to myself and I won't realize it. I'll like open up the fridge and I'll be like, the milk expired. You can't drink the milk if the milk expired. And I'll like pour it down and you gotta get new milk. Like talking to myself, you gotta get new milk. And then I'll look in the mirror and be like, you gotta get new milk. I'll go outside. I could be a killer. I don't know. I could be a killer. It's bad. Don't live alone. Stop doing it. But yeah,
I mean that's the need for the that's the need for the office. I think I was listening to this thing like Larry David said, where he said everybody needs a place they go in the day, and I was like, yeah, they do. Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, like, you even need that before you're living alone. It's like you should just get out of the house.
Think about how unhealthy this is. If the place you're going outside of your home is inside your head, there's a problem. There's a problem. If your escape is internal and not external, get outside. Stop doing that.
But yeah, it's gonna be cool. We're gonna have our own studio. We're gonna not be weirdos.
You know what it is like I was talking to Dave about this earlier. I honestly, this isn't even like a joke. I honestly feel this. It is kind of silly though, but it's like Gladiator. That's what it is. It's like the necessary evil of freelance is you got to win the crowd. Like it's like the Maximus thing. Like you got to go out there and you got to fight like all those other great gladiators, or they're not going to love you. And only if they love you can you then do what you want to do and rejoin your family in fields of gold wheat. It's like, if Maximus just died in the first fight, no one would have cared. Whatever. It's only because he fought like all those other dudes, and you have to buy your freedom. You have to stand.
And then you die at the end.
And you rejoin your family in Elysium. No, but that's the thing is like, it's the whole win the crowd mentality. It's like, if people want to see X, Y, and Z, then guess what? At some point, you're going to have to be X, Y, and Z. That's all it is like, if only 3 things are selling inside the market that you're trying to be a part of, You got to be one or all of those three things for a long enough time that you have the right and the freedom and the financial stability to take a risk being something else. It's not going to work unless you do that. And it sucks that that's the case, but that's the case.
It's just a hard industry. I mean, that's all it is, really. Is there's just not a lot of jobs like this, and it's a hard thing to do.
That's what it is. Is that the emperor?
The end goal is pretty good.
The emperor is standards in this metaphor. Standardized freelance. I want to stand in front of him and stab him in the neck with his own dagger and watch him die. And then I want to give freelance back to the senators. And then I want to fall asleep and disappear. Are you not entertained? I'm going to watch that later. But no, like, that's what it is. It's just like, you got to be 20 other people before you're allowed to be yourself, unfortunately. Even if you don't think about it that way, that's what it is. Every time somebody says, every time you get a revision and they go, can you make it a little more like this guy? That's happening. You might not realize it, but it's happening. That's the thing.
Yeah, but hey, the end is worth it. The end's worth it. Yep. I mean, even the jobs I do now are worth it. It's like, I don't know, like I've, like when I do advertising stuff, it's like a 3-day turnaround. It's a lot of money, and it's cool. And it's always different. Even if it's the same kind of stuff that, you'd see on every poster everywhere, it's a fun job. It's a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And, to say that, like, it's hard, it is. But not in comparison to what it was.
Right.
But that's just what the nature of it. If that's what you decide to do, it's just know the stuff we talk about. The stuff we talked about this whole live stream. It's just it's a reality. Dan's in a different place than me right now, and Dan is he's in like the darkest part, which I remember. I remember doing the same thing.
I remember Dave being where I am now and me not understanding it back when he was in it. That's how weird. That's how weird it gets. I remember him having this conversation with me, and me being in college and being like, "Well, it really sucks. Go outside, idiot." Like, now it's like it's crazy thinking back on that, where it's like, oh, he gave me a map into a volcano, and I followed it. It's like, but no, like that's what it is. Like, there's diamonds on the other side of this volcano, but you got to dive into it first. It's like, okay, but no, it's like it's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's hard to pin down anything for anybody to really like. I feel like the steps I've been taking have worked for me.
Yeah,
they've taken a while, and they're not like nobody ever told me that this is what you're supposed to do, but it worked. And like I don't know, like that's what it's. But what it's like is like nobody tells you.
Yeah,
nobody tells you anything.
That's why we want to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like that's exactly what I was getting to.
So you don't get blindsided.
Yeah, it's like you want to talk about it because you both don't want to like live in it and have it be, and you don't want like the midpoint to feel like the end. You want to know that there's another side to it. There's if you get to the point where things are bad or it's really stressful, then to know that there are just ways of getting out of it, where you're not just going to be like you're not just going to have to give up if you have a dream of being a freelancer, to just give up and be like, oh well, it's hopeless because I don't know how to get out of this trap.
I mean, it's like, I'm going to go back to the metaphor from the beginning of this discussion, because this is like what I started talking about, and it's totally true, and I just want everyone to understand that. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, this is where I am right now. It's not where I'm going to be in a year. It's not where I was a year ago. But right now, this is what it is. This is what it'll probably be for a lot of you at some point. But it's like, Columbus got a ship, and he was like, let's go find this continent. It's going to be great. We got the Queen behind us. It's going to be lucrative. Let's go on this journey. And I was like, okay, sure. So I got in this ship. It was all a huge, exciting journey. Woo, we're going on a quest. I'm in the middle of the Atlantic right now. And I'm just like, I don't see land. We're running out of food. There's no wind, man. What do you... you said there was going to be food and land, and it was going to be fun. And I know that if I just keep going, I'm going to get there, and it's going to be great. But right now, I want to be a cannibal. I want to eat people. I don't know. It's like it's like any journey sucks in the middle everywhere. Like no matter, even if it's movie trilogies, even if it's any story of anyone going anywhere in history looking for something, any career, it usually sucks in the middle because that's when you got to do all the hard shit. But like that's where I'm at, trying so hard not to get disheartened by it.
Yeah, and if it wasn't hard, then you wouldn't be doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's just what it is. Like you could go work at like you can go work at a studio and have everything and have it be fine. But I feel like if you want to do something, I mean, if you want to get used to the lifestyle of having like being able to like make your own choices,
Right.
being able to decide what direction your career is going to go on the fly, it's like then freelance is really like what it is. And it's tough, but it's supposed to be tough.
Yeah, it's like the payoff if you do this and you get through to the other side is that you can literally create your own destiny. You can do anything you want because you'll have the audience, the skill set, and the reputation to make that a feasible option no matter what. You can work on any IP. It's like, think about this. All these artists that people look up to right now, if suddenly some artist, think of any big top industry name, if they just did fan art for something, guaranteed that IP is going to ask if they want to work on it. Like, once you get to a certain point, like it happened with Dave and the Turtles, because I'm talking to him, might as well use him as an example again. But like, once you get to that point, even though it's really hard to get there, you can literally do any fucking thing you want. You can do anything you want. You could work, if there's a game coming out that you really like, all you have to do is do work for it and release it, and you'll get contacted. It's like, God forbid, if they don't contact you, you can send them an email and they'll see your stuff and chances are you'll work on it. You can make up your own thing. It doesn't have to be a fan art kind of thing. It doesn't have to be someone else's IP. Once you have that audience, once you have that skill set, you can do your own thing and it'll sell. Look at Kickstarter. Anthony Jones asked for what, $8,000 to put a book out, and he made like 50 in like half the time it was required to raise the money. Like, you can do anything you want. It's crazy. The payoff is fantastic. It's just like, of course it has to cost something terrible to get that though, because it's the best.
Yeah, Marilyn has to come and take your firstborn.
Exactly. How are you going to unite England unless you sleep with your sister and have a evil Mordred baby that kills you with a lance? I don't know what I'm doing. No, but it's Dave's having a great time in the sun. He got out of the cave. I just fell down the mine shaft. I think I can hear Dave's voice faintly in the distance, but I'm not sure. Could just be in my mind playing tricks on me. What else can we talk about? I feel like there's more anger that I need to get out, but we've been talking for 2 hours now.
Yeah. It's funny because like I can talk about good things, but it's like I'm talking to
keep talking about good things, and I'll give you the mineshaft perspective. We'll do a tennis match of point counterpoint, where it's like, this is the 5 years of work answer versus the 2 years of work answer, and you can ping pong the results. So go ahead, and I'll do the counterpoint.
All right, I'll just do my like end goal and what it's turning out to be, and it's not bad. Where I have a sort of like regiment going now, and this is just something that I feel like just keep working, whatever. But now I'm planning on doing taking months off, like every other month when I like take off, and just do my own stuff, and then eventually maybe do like a Kickstarter down the line or something, and like there is a lot of freedom, and like I always think about people like like even guys who are primarily like magic, like look at Alexi, like he was a freelance guy, now he has like his own company. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I don't know, it's one thing to reminisce about hard times and to be to think about like breaking away from a lifestyle, but like the realities are that it's pretty good, you know, like being able to have enough contacts. Like at this point, you know, and this is something I encourage everybody to do, is to go to events. You know, like that's the one thing I would say is always worth it. Like something that is always a good idea. Working up the ladder if you're doing freelance or just anything, trying to get better. If you're trying to just like make a profession out of this, like me and Dan have gone to the workshops, like the Massive Black. But I mean, like I would go to like if I could, I'd go to like the Iron Curtain thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could have back then, I would have. But I would go to like the ones in the United States and like all that stuff just to start to get to know people. You know, like we met we like really started talking to like K-Kai there and a lot of other people, and like we just started making friends, and you know, like I've been doing that for a long time online, but the difference going to an event like that is huge. You know, like that kind of stuff can really, really help you in the long run. Just to know, number one, that there's like real people out there doing the same thing you're doing, because everybody who does this is, unless you're in like Santa Monica or something, it's like they're spread thin throughout the world,
Right.
and chances are you don't really have anybody around. So like these things are really, I think, helpful, motivating to do. And I know that they've like saved me from the abyss before.
Yeah.
Of just like going and being like, oh, this is what it's like at the end, you know, like.
Yeah, that was the cool
this
thing.
This is the holy grail kind of thing where you're like, oh, I could work at this point. You know, like these are just human beings like me. I could do it.
That's the cool thing is like most of these people that are at like, let's just use numbers to make it easy. Most of these people that are at a 10 can remember being at a 5 and remember being at a 1. So like, I went to these conventions like Dave was just saying. I met tons of people. They were great. But like, never did I think, like 2 years ago that, Ken Premlard, Massive Black, he's a great friend of ours. He's a really cool dude. They're all really cool over there. But I was having trouble with a piece I was doing for like Pathfinder a while ago. And I was talking to him, and he was, he just remembered. He was like, "Oh, I remember doing those jobs, man. This is what you should do, and you'll get through it." And just having that perspective from people that have been there and have gotten out of there is like the best thing ever. Because I mean, after a few months of doing it, it can feel endless. You know what I mean? You get in that routine, and having that outside perspective is the only thing really that can keep you going. It's the best thing. It's like it's just crazy.
Yeah, and you gotta be willing to like walk right up to these people and talk to them and just be a human being.
Yeah,
Don't, like,
they're
sit
just
back
people.
and be intimidated because, you know, I feel like at the end of the day, you know, like it's such a lifestyle of like having to work at this kind of stuff all the time, and
Right.
there's never a shortage of this kind of thing, especially for people like that who are in these companies and in these studios. So, you know, like they don't. I feel like they don't care.
Right.
You know, like it's like with me, like
Especially
I don't
if
need
like
to talk to artists. You know, like I don't need to talk about art. I don't need to have you be like. It's not like they need you to be a professional in order to like think you're worth talking to.
yeah, and stuff like the Massive Black conventions. If an artist agrees to go there and be an instructor and hang out at the event, they're literally telling you by doing that, "Come talk to me. I'm here for you." That's what those are, and it's hard to think about that the first time you go to one because you're kind of starstruck and like, these are the people whose art I look at. These are the stuff I'm aspiring to be. But it's like, if they agree to go there as an instructor and they're hanging around, that's what they're there for. They're there for you to learn and talk to. They're being paid for for you to learn from them. That's why they're there. So don't feel weird about it. Listen to their talk, ask them questions, get a crit on your portfolio. Just be a dude. It's just hang around, be normal. Because the thing is, no matter how bad you think you are, they have all been that bad, and they all remember being that bad, and they all remember how frustrating it is. And there's going to be empathy. There's never a time when you walk up and you're like, "This is my portfolio, and I don't think I'm good," and they go, "Yeah, you fucking suck, man. Give up." Like that's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. They might give you a harsh crit and tell you how to make it better, but they're never going to laugh in your face and tell you to leave the convention. Like, it's not going to happen. Don't feel weird about it.
There really isn't a worst case scenario for that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. It's just like, if you haven't been to one of those, go to one. Isn't there one coming up in London?
I think
I don't
so.
know.
Yeah.
There's all kinds. There's
Something going on in the UK.
Marco does one now, and I think Tad's doing one in the UK, and Massive Black's probably doing another one in August. But yeah, it's just good to have perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to talk about more good things? I don't want to. I don't want to take over.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard, really, for me to like put things in the right perspective because it's like getting in a car accident.
Yeah.
I've like pushed a lot of that stuff out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I like don't really. It's hard to like compare it,
Right.
to like be like able to be like, oh yeah, this is a lot better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like for what you're saying, like right now, like I remember what it was like to do all those jobs. It sucked, but it was so stressful that I was like when I was in I think I usually like if I'm coming up on a deadline, I'm like, oh, I'm stressed. But then I think back to like when I was really stressed,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, this is nothing. Like I was like when I was at my most stressed, my like hair was falling out and shit. When I was in New Hampshire, which is that's a crazy example.
Yeah.
That only really happened once, and that was just so much stuff was going on.
I remember that.
But yeah, like that was pretty crazy. But yeah, nothing like that ever happens again.
Yeah, like I don't know. At least I'm in the worst of it right now. Like I know that once this piece is done, like once this section of it's over, it's all uphill. Because it's better pay, it's more freedom, it's cooler jobs. It's like this middle section is like, ooh, it's rough. But once it's over, it's over. And you kind of have to go through it. Everybody kind of. Very few people are just a success. It does happen, but like not for most people. You gotta kind of work your way up.
Oh, do you have any questions for me, Dan?
Do I have questions for you?
Oh yeah.
Hold on. Let's think here. I can come up with some questions for you.
I'm actually just trying to think of anything nice to say.
Okay. I can ask you questions that are loaded for a nice response.
Oh, definitely.
Let's do that.
I'm trying to. I just want to raise it.
Oh, let's talk about this. This was pretty cool. Something happened this week that has never happened to me before, which was really cool. I got a random. I signed on to AIM, which I haven't been on in like years. Like I never go on AIM, but
Really?
I think I hit it by accident, and it like opened up. Like I only go on AIM to talk to Dennis Kachenko, who runs the forum, Crimson Daggers forum. I think I opened it by accident, and I had a message from some girl. And she had gotten a tattoo of like a Tin Woodsman thing I did for this Oz thing a while ago on her arm, and it was like this really cool sleeve design she did of it, and that was like the coolest thing, and it was like really invigorating, and it was like, oh, that's why I do this kind of moment, and I was like, that's really cool, and that felt really good, and I know people get like your turtles and stuff all the time. That must be cool.
Yeah, I don't know, like that kind of stuff is that. Yeah, I mean, like you're right. That's like one of the number one. Like forget about jobs, forget about all that stuff. Like that means more than anything.
Yeah.
When somebody, like that's when you can feel pretty good that you've actually done something that people like.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like when somebody's willing to do that, you're like, oh, so this person really likes this, like to the point where they're gonna put it on their body forever. Like, yeah, like I love that. Like. I don't know. It's definitely moments, any sort of moment like that where you can just really like, I don't know, like you can just see somebody's appreciation for like anything you do, and you just feel like I want to keep on doing it. Like
since this stream has started 2 hours ago, I've had 30 friend requests on Facebook. So hi everybody who just added me on Facebook. Hey, what's up? You now have unlimited access to Photoshop pictures of my face on women's bodies. Have fun. Have fun perusing them.
Yeah.
If you are a woman listening to this, there's a very good chance in the future that I will be on your body and I will ruin your self-perception for the rest of your life. So have fun with that. If you have sexy pics up, you're asking for it. So good luck.
Dan just wants to put his face on hot women.
The second you put those pictures on Facebook, you're saying it's okay for me to do it. So
it's in the Facebook terms.
yeah, it's in the Facebook terms that I'm allowed to put my face on your body. Get away with it. Oh God, let's think about more nice things.
No, I was actually I was thinking then like I put out the first skull and shark image, and like as soon as I did that, I got this message from this dude who got it tattooed on him, and I was like, wow, right away.
Yeah, that was. I remember seeing that. That was cool.
Yeah, I was like, that's I don't know, like that, and now I'm because just having like any sort of reach or a portfolio, it's like you can do things that you never really even like thought about.
Yeah.
Where like people will like for me right now, I'm working with Laserhawk and Power Glove, these two like electronic music groups, and they're doing like soundtrack stuff for Skull and Shark, and it's things like that that are really cool. Like once you've had a body of work and you start doing like a project, like you forget that you can like reach out to people and use that as like a proof of sort of concept thing where you're like, this is what I do. Do you think it's cool? Do you want to work with me? And people are willing to do it because of what you do.
You know what? That's a good full circle kind of thing to bring back to this, because all the stuff we were talking about for the past 2 hours where it's like, you start off really into certain things, you do the jobs that sell, companies tell you who to be, you become that person, some people can't get out of that. When you do finally get out of that, if you remember how to, and if you're stuck like I feel like I am and have been for a while, when you do get out of that, like what Dave just said, and you finally start doing the kinds of ideas that you got into this industry to do, people love them. I've never really seen something bomb. Like every personal IP kind of thing that people I like have started on their own, where they're like, you know what, I have enough money, I'm going to do my thing. The community and the fans are overwhelmingly supportive. So it's like, don't think that just because the jobs out there put the most stuff out that they're the best ideas. That's not what it is. It's that it's a self-sustaining system that pumps out a product on a schedule. But just because there's more of that stuff, it doesn't mean that that's the best thing, and it doesn't mean that that's what people necessarily want. You have good ideas. You started doing this because you had good ideas that you wanted to see taken seriously, that you wanted to see done, that you wanted to execute because nobody else was doing them the way that you technically wanted to do it. Like, you had a vision, and that's still a valid thing. Like, don't get lost into that trap where, like, for 4 years I've been doing what clients have been telling me to do, and I've completely forgotten who I was, but it doesn't matter because this is what sells. Chances are your idea is a really good idea. Just get back to it in a place where you have the skill and the audience and all that stuff I talked about to do it the right way. I mean, Kickstarter totally proved that. It's like people are killing it with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so like once you have some time and you can start developing your own ideas and work outside of the jobs you have, it's you really don't have many limitations. You have so many sources of like exposure. Even like you can use Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff to get your ideas out and reach out to people, and I just feel like it's so easy to like market things now.
I mean, there's markets for your stuff that you haven't even thought of, and that's the craziest thing. Is like you can do an image. This has happened to me. It's happened to Dave. It's happened to a lot of people. You can do an image and people will find it, and it will mean something to them that you never considered the image could mean. So, like, being everywhere is a very important thing, too. Be on Tumblr, be on Reddit, be on Facebook, be on Twitter, everywhere, all the forums. Like,
Yeah.
I'll use this example and hopefully it won't embarrass him. But one really funny thing that happened a while ago. If you guys know Miles Johnston, he's a really cool dude, good friend of ours. He did this image called I forget what it was. It was a guy laying in bed with cables coming out of him, and it was like looking into his dream. And it was like, in the dream he was with this girl. You can go find it on his DeviantArt. But that's what it was. It was like a guy plugged in, and he was living this kind of digital dream that he was with this woman, and they were in love or whatever. And he put it out there, and it was just a piece of fine art that he did for himself. It was just something that he thought would be a cool idea, and he did it. And an anti-masturbation group found it, and they were like, our philosophy is that we don't self-pleasure ourselves to maintain the highest level of inspiration and energy. And they were like, this image sums up what our whole philosophy is. We love it. And like, at no point in painting that was he like, you know what this image means? But they loved it. Tons of people in that group loved it. And that's the thing, is that they only found it because it exploded on like Reddit. That's the thing. Let's put all your work out there. Sorry, Miles, if you didn't want me to talk about that specific example. He has lots of really good work, but that's my favorite story because it's the most random group to find it.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
I didn't even believe him when he told me that. I was like, that didn't happen. Oh, this is their website. Oh. But no, yeah.
It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, but it's like, be everywhere.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, if we're going to talk regular, sort of like cutting through the sort of like freelance timeline, it's like if you want to like speed things up, be on everything. Be on like absolutely everything.
Yeah.
That's like one, the main thing that sort of changed how I kind of do my work. People wouldn't even know me if I wasn't on, like DeviantArt. Like DeviantArt's like the reason so much of my stuff got anywhere. And then on top of that, like if it wasn't for Tumblr, like, so many people wouldn't have seen my work. There's just so many resources to take advantage of. It's hard to really like keep up with everything, but
right.
If you're doing freelance, it's kind of part of your job, so you like have to make time for it. But it's way worth it. I love all that stuff now. Like, it basically just cuts out a lot of time. You're basically like, you're throwing out an image and letting people market it for you. You're just like, here you go.
Yeah, it's
if
great.
They think it's cool, they get it out to everybody they know, and then.
I mean, that's really the test. Is like, do stuff from your head that you think is cool, and then put it out there and see what their reaction is. Like, just from like, I have a DeviantArt gallery full of all the work I've done as a professional since I started. Okay, so there's a bunch of images in there, and almost all of them are client images. And then I did one for me that I just thought would be cool. It was like this cathedral night dude. And that is the one image I have that got a daily deviation, and it got reblogged a bunch of places, and everybody really liked it. That's the only one in there that I did entirely for me. So it's like, whenever that kind of stuff happens, and like Dave's had a similar story a bunch of times, but whenever that happens, you have to kind of step back and be like, oh, wait, I do have good ideas, and I shouldn't necessarily be the product of whatever jobs I'm doing at the time. Like, that's the stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, like,
that's
those
the feel-good
sort of moments. Yeah, it's just like, like being able to put out, like, the Skull and Shark trailer thing and just get an instant response from everybody.
Right.
It's, it gives me motivation to be like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, I like this. I think it's going to be cool. But then seeing everybody else be like, yeah, I love it. And, it's, you should always... like, like basically what I'm saying is the thing wasn't done. Like Skull and Shark isn't done.
Yeah.
I just want to see what people think. So I like cast out lines. I'm like, here's something,
right.
Like here's something here and there. If you like it, I hope people like it. But and the other side of like all that kind of marketing is, especially if you're doing this, is to do, like live stream. Like this is really cool. Like how many, like so many people know me just from doing the Crimson Daggers.
Yeah, same here.
And yeah, like that helped me a ton. Like we kind of encourage that a lot, within the group, and a lot of people do it. But
tons of people.
Yeah, I mean, like it It's like, even if you're just like an established professional, like something like that can only help.
I mean, we got like 108 people in here. If you're new to this and you don't know what we're talking about, there's a Crimson Daggers forum, and right at the top of the forum, there's a live streams subforum. There's a list in there that one of our members made, and it's fantastic. It's all the people in the group that have regular streams, and if they're live, it shows up as live at the top. So it's like a little app that tells you who's live when. So like if this is helping you, and if it's easier for you to work when other people are working or other people are talking, that's like the best thing that ever happened. Like I love that thing. It's the best. You can just open it and someone's almost always on. There's enough people now that it's just like, yeah, there's always somebody doing something.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the sort of community thing I want to make just like a normal part of every freelancer's life, where you just have a group of people that you can come and hang out with, and you know somebody's going to be around, and you can start to make friends and talk to people and do like what me and Dan are doing right now.
Exactly. But it's like, another kind of full circle thing to go back to what we were talking about before. Like what David was saying about casting out lines and doing your own ideas, and what I was talking about. If you do that and for some reason it doesn't work, don't get discouraged, because all that probably means is that you need more of those three things I kept going back to. Maybe you don't have enough skill yet. Maybe you don't have a big enough audience yet. Maybe you don't have enough of a reputation. Maybe the right people aren't seeing it. So, if it doesn't work, keep working for 6 months, try it again. It's gonna work eventually. That's the thing, is that, I just don't want someone listening who's totally new to this to try that, have it not work for whatever of those three reasons, and then be totally discouraged. Oh, it didn't work for me. It's just never going to happen. It's like, no, it will. It's just you have to do it at the right time. You don't know when the right time is. You just have to keep trying it till it catches. That's the thing, is that I don't know how many projects before Skull and Shark Dave kind of tried to nod at, but, it happened when it was going to happen. That's the thing, is that like it's a natural kind of thing that will happen when the time is right. So if it doesn't work, try again later. Try again later. Try again later. It's gonna take off.
Yeah, or just keep doing like anything all the time. Like if as long as you're creating, like I one thing I can say that I would basically like I would I'm against this where people wait to do something, like wait to the point where they think they're going to be professional as far as like even starting to develop something.
Yeah.
Like I feel like even when you are doing your own IP, your own property, your own sort of comic, whatever it is, you don't have to wait. As far as like developing ideas and stuff goes, like keep doing your work, keep studying, do that stuff in your off time if you have it, if you can. But the idea that you should wait for your skills to be like totally done,
that's
before
dumb.
You start doing something is sort of like counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Where like I know we were kind of talking about that, but I'm saying more or less like sketch around in your sketchbook, come up with ideas,
right.
Have fun on the side. Make time for it. Give yourself, a window every day. But yeah, like I used to say that, like I would wait to do this because I didn't feel like I was right. But the thing is as soon as you start working on your own ideas, new ideas happen. You give yourself room to develop and to create.
And it's kind of like it flushes.
It just grows.
Yeah, it cleans you out. It's great. It's the best stress relief to just shut all your stuff down and just draw in your sketchbook. Like, it's not a coincidence that I've had an insanely stressful 3 weeks. I've been very unhappy. It's not a coincidence that I'm having this conversation with Dave right now, and I'm also drawing in my sketchbook at the same time while I'm talking. That's not a coincidence. It's a very therapeutic thing that a lot of people forget to do. I forgot for ages. I got so bogged down with client work that it was just like, I felt like drawing in my sketchbook was like, a privilege that I hadn't earned or something, which is the stupidest thing ever. But that's the thing, is that it relaxes you. It puts things in perspective. You get to just enjoy drawing, which is like something that you forget to enjoy when you do so much client work.
Especially if you're like studying stuff.
Yeah, it's like it's ridiculous to just draw for the fun of it and enjoy it after such a long period of time of focusing on like this has to be perfect, like this study has to be perfect. Like, it's like God, it should be recreational most of the time, not once in a while, but it's just another weird mindset that you get trapped in because it's just this ladder of things that just change how you think. And it's not the right way to think. You just, you get brainwashed.
Yeah.
You get brainwashed.
But hey, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I'll talk about whatever. I don't care. I'm a boy full of coffee with nowhere to go. It's all good. Whatever you want to do. If you want to call it quits, if you got stuff you got to do, that's fine. If there's something else you want to talk about, that's fine.
I got loads of client work. No, I don't really.
Loads.
I'm wrapping stuff up right now. Just isn't that bad.
I mean, that's the thing to just remind yourselves of. I know I keep repeating it, but it's like your skills are there to serve your ideas. Always. That's why you're trying to get better. So if you lose the ideas, what was it for? You know what I mean? It's like you have to constantly remind yourself that like you were a person when you started doing this. You can't become a product of, you can't study so much that you become that. You can't be that. You can't be a math equation when you're painting. You shouldn't be. So many people are. They're like, well, based on the studies I've done, this plus this divided by this added to this equals a very successful image. It's like, that's crazy, but it happens to so many people. Like, your skills are there to serve your ideas. Skills on their own are very boring things.
And the flip side of that is that ideas can carry themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Anything. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that aren't drawn super well, but it's super memorable and super original and great. I mean, that's where you come. Style is deviation from perfection. I mean, that's all it is. It's like, you can heavily stylize something and it doesn't need to be perfect anatomy. But as long as it's good, fundamentally a good idea, that's enough. That's enough.
And like, think about all like the funny sort of like online comics and stuff you read.
Think about like Adventure Time.
Yeah.
There's nothing in that fundamentally, but it's a great idea, and for what it is, it works. It's like there's all kinds of stuff like that. Even if you hate Adventure Time, you can't deny the success of the idea. Like, that's the thing, though, is like just to always keep that in the back of your head, that being able to draw super well and super correctly doesn't mean shit without an interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, a well-drawn image will never trump a good idea.
Exactly. Something that interests people is always going to be more important than the most accurate leg I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like that's the part of your mind that you still have to like build up.
It's like how many ateliers are out there pumping up people that can do the most perfect arms and legs you've ever seen, and how many of them ever turn that into something? I mean, that's an honest question. It might sound mean, but it's like, it's an honest question. I mean, you can learn great things from those schools. You can learn that knowledge and then apply it to something that's very successful and interesting. But it's like, a perfectly drawn anatomical thing is very respectable to other artists, but people, which is the core of the audience out there, the core of the world, they don't care. They don't, no one cares about that. They want to see something interesting. They want to see something entertaining and original. They want to see what, they want to feel you in the drawing. They don't want to see like, this is an elbow and I've shaded it perfectly. Like, they don't, it's so boring. And I mean, a lot of this comes from me being in art school for 4 years and, kids who were professional fine artists, which means that you're professionally unpaid constantly, just pursuing how to draw these extremely niche things just because you want to do them perfectly. And it's like getting lost in that I scares the shit out of me. That seems so scary, to get lost in that mindset of like, I won't stop drawing the shin until I get it perfect. Like, that's horrifying. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want to take questions, or is that a bad idea?
What is it say? I was just looking back at it. How do you get your ideas back? Can they be trained? You just have to like free yourself up to have ideas. I think that's most of it, is to not like, don't put yourself in a place where you're like, don't come into a situation saying, like, you know, me and Dan talk about this all the time, where you're just saying, all right, time to come up with ideas.
Yeah.
You know, like, just give yourself an open playing field. Like, one thing that I do that I think is fun is I just write down words that I think sound cool. Yep. And then I look at the words. Like, I'll make a list of, like, Blizzard, you know, like Axe Skull, yeah. Like Dead Face. And then I just look at each word combo or whatever, and I mix them up and be like, okay, what is that? Yep. And then I build up around whatever I think that is. But just give yourself some, like, sort of weird starting point that isn't anything, you know, and build off of that. Like, just anything, you know, anything you can think of. But don't come into it saying, like, I'm doing this very specific thing.
Time to be great.
It's hard. Yeah, like, it's really hard to do that if you're thinking, like, I need to come up with a great idea. And it's probably not going to happen because you're thinking about it.
If you're really having a hard time coming up with anything original, or you're having a hard time, like, because that's the word, original is a bad word. You should get that out of your vocabulary. Original things happen organically. You can't sit down and say, I'm going to be original today. Like, it doesn't work by definition. But if you're really having a hard time getting back to, like, who you are, like what kind of ideas that you enjoy doing naturally because you've been working too much, if you get in that kind of system, the only thing that works for me, literally the only thing, is a hard reset. I stop working. I haven't done this in a long time because, like I explained earlier, those of you who heard it understand. But the best ideas that I have, that I think are the most exciting, come to me when I'm swimming in a pool at the gym. You know, it's like when I'm like scuba diving and it has nothing to do with art. That's when I'll get a really great idea, and I can't wait to get out of the water to write it down because I don't want to forget. When I'm driving 4 hours to go to New York, that's when I get the idea. It's never when I'm sitting at the computer.
Yeah.
Never when I'm sitting at the computer. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, like, I think some people can do that, but I mean, like, I know for me, like, I've been going on, like, really long walks. Like, I haven't now because it's like 7 degrees out, but when it isn't like that, I'll go for like an hour walk, and that alone is usually enough to just like think through an idea or come up with something that looks really cool. Or I'll have like my headphones on and listen to music and just like be outside of the space you're always in.
Because the thing is,
or like go to like a coffee shop or something, or sit down with a friend who does something similar if you have one.
It's like, there's probably no basis for this. In fact, I'm just gonna say what I think. I mean, hopefully it makes sense, but like, your brain can only do so much, and if you're working all the time and you have 5 deadlines in the back of your brain that you have to schedule out, and you're working on a piece in front of your computer and you've got reference up, and you're on a clock, you're doing 10 things at once whenever you're painting professionally. You're looking at reference, you're looking at the style sheet, you're thinking, how can I make this better? You're processing what's going wrong in the image, you're checking the anatomy, like all that stuff's going on. And with all that stimulation mentally, how can you come up with an idea? It's like it's not going to happen. You're doing too much. You gotta remove yourself from that environment, I think, to come up with the stuff that's really going to define. Like, what do I have to say? What am I into? What am I going to do? That's really the only thing, is like, when I was a little kid and I had the ideas that made me want to draw, I never had those ideas when I was drawing. I had them when I was playing in the woods with my brother, hitting each other with sticks. I had them when I was, on a long, boring car ride with my dad, and I saw, like, something on the side of the road that looked really cool.
Or in math class.
Yeah, like in math class, when I was so bored with what was going on, I had to think about exciting things in the back of my brain because I couldn't take being in math class. Like, all those ideas and exciting things that made me want to be an artist, none of them happened when I was drawing. They all happened when I was either bored or I had to make my own fun. And that's the thing, is like, if you want to access that again now, if you want to try to get back to who you were originally, that's really the only way to do it. Go out in the woods, go camping. Don't bring a sketchbook. Bring like a notepad to write down little ideas. Don't bring your computer. Don't bring any of your reference folders. Reference is the end of innovation. Uh, get rid of all that shit and just put yourself in a scenario where you have to make your own fun. And that's when it happens, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the other side is like if you're I think if you're in the space where you work all the time or you have any sort of stress at all,
Yeah.
like what Dan was saying, it's sort of the thing where you it's hard to get out of that in that space. Like it's hard to even if you don't have any work to do. I think it's hard to be in the place where you do work and also come up with really fun ideas. I think it's limiting because of what that environment means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to answer James's question in the chat, I seem to associate sitting at my desk with feeling terrible. Has it ever gotten to the point for you where when you're out for the day and you feel great, but the second you sit back down, all the depression comes back? It used to happen last year, but the honest answer to that is I haven't gone out and taken a day off in so long that I can't answer that question. The last day that I took off, I went up to Boston and me and Dave got coffee and we worked on, an IP that we're doing together. But that was still work. My brain was still totally focused on work. That was my day off because I wasn't working on my clients. I was working on a personal thing. But I haven't taken a day off where I go drive around or I walk around or I'm in such financial straits because here's the other thing I should explain. I'm paying way more money than I should right now because I chose to live alone. I don't have a roommate. And affording that is a very expensive thing. So when I'm talking about all this, I'm not saying there's no money in what I'm doing. I'm saying that my bills are very high and the money is relatively low. So those two things together make a really bad scenario. But because for the past 10 months I've been in a scenario where I'm paying all the bills myself, I'm not splitting it with anybody, I haven't taken time off. I think I took my dad surprised me with a trip to Vegas for my birthday, and I actually got mad at him, which is crazy. I was like, I have to paint these wizards, Dad. You can't love me on my birthday, you son of a bitch. Like that, it was terrible. But I think I took 2 days off in Vegas, and the entire time I was in Vegas, I'd be watching a Cirque du Soleil show, and it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. There's like trapeze, and there's fireballs going in the air, and there's like a floating bed, and there's Beatles music playing like super loud. And the whole time, I'm enjoying myself, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, those wizards aren't done yet. You didn't paint those wizards. Why didn't you paint those wizards? You shouldn't have come. You don't deserve a birthday, you stupid piece of shit. Like, it's like, it's bad, man. It's really bad. But like, before I would take days off, and yeah, that was true back then. Back when I had a roommate, I would take a day off sometimes. I'd go up to Boston and just hang out with Dave, or I'd go home and see my brother. And I didn't have the crippling workload back then. I'd have like a job or two max. Now I have like up to 7 at a time. But it's like back then I'd come home and I'd be like, oh right, I got to sit down for another 10 days before I can go out again. And like, yeah, that gets depressing. But like, I haven't done it in so long that I forget what that hope feels like. That's the honest answer.
You never know what kind of like stress you're under till it's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know.
You can't be objective about the place you've put yourself till you remove yourself from it for a while and then come back and look at it.
Yeah.
But, that's the thing. I don't know if that made sense to anybody, but yeah, it's just like I put myself in a bad financial situation thinking that it would make me work harder, and oh boy, did it ever make me work harder to the point of stupidity. But, man, more sterling advice from my good friend Dave Rapoza.
Amen.
But no, that's what you did. You purposefully, if anyone doesn't know this, I'm sure most of you do, when Dave thought he wasn't getting enough done, he rented a house he couldn't afford to force himself to make more money so he could afford it. I mean, he signed a lease just to make himself work harder,
and
which
bought
is
a car.
Yeah, he bought a car just so he could pay it off. He got a new computer just so he had to pay the credit card.
It was
like,
terrible.
He did all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, that was his idea. Was I'm going to buy all this stuff I can't afford, so I'm in the shit, and then I have to work or I go to jail. And it's like that works. it definitely does get the job done, but there was probably a better way to do it. And there's probably a better way for me to do it than copying him, but, you know, always
That's
moving
why
forward.
you're friends, man.
Yeah, that's why we're great buds. Dave's going to have a long life. Stress is a positive thing for him. He's in shape. I'm an overweight man. Stress for me is a heart attack at 35 and a closed casket funeral because of what it did to my body. No, I'm just... No, but yeah, I mean...
yeah, I actually forgot about that stuff, but you just said it.
Yeah, see? He put it out of his mind. It was a
I don't even have the car. It's like my dad's.
Chapter
my
best
dad
forgotten.
uses it.
But no, it's really cool. I mean, you live alone long enough, and you know, you wake up in the middle of the night, and your neighbors are having sex, and you can hear it, and you stare at the ceiling, and you wonder if they're actually having sex or if your mind's playing tricks on you because you've been alone so long. And you just stare at the ceiling, and you go, "Am I dreaming? Is this real?" You know, it gets weird. But I'm working on it. It's good. It's good stuff.
You gotta talk about it.
Yeah, I have to talk. I mean, the day that I stop talking about it is the day that I do something bad. I mean, that's, you know.
It's the day that your window whips open and you get sucked out.
Yeah, that's something I can talk about. I have a recurring fantasy in the middle of the night when I can't sleep because another thing that comes with stress is insomnia, and this is where I really sound insane. So I'm just going to talk about this. I have a recurring thought when I can't sleep because I have these huge factory windows. I live in this big renovated loft factory kind of thing. I have this recurring fantasy that in the middle of the night when it's silent and I can't sleep and it's like 3:15 in the morning basically, I have this fantasy that my window explodes and a torrent of air like a wind tunnel sucks me out of my bed naked into the sky. And that's
like little Nemo.
And that's how I die. You know, that's what happens. And no one sees me again.
Like an airplane.
It's like you know like when the window explodes in Empire Strikes Back and Luke gets sucked out onto the thing. It's like that, but like way more horrifying. It's like tornado sounds and that, and I just get sucked out of my bed and it makes like a wet spaghetti sound, like, and I just get sucked out the window, up into the sky. I keep thinking about that. Like every night when I can't sleep, I'm just like, is tonight the night the window suddenly explodes and the silence stops? Please let the silence stop. But no, yeah, that's what happens.
I always have, I know you have the same thing.
Yeah.
But I always have the...
oh, the team?
What?
The team?
No, I have the idea, well, similar.
Yeah.
Where I'm drawing at my desk, and because I have headphones on, I don't know why this always comes up. I imagine somebody opening my door and just shooting me in the back of the head.
Exactly.
It's like the first thing I imagine is like somebody's gonna come in, I'm not gonna hear it, I'm just gonna get shot and die.
Yep, I have a recurring...
That's like a reoccurring... It's not even like a dream, it's like a real fear.
See, it's similar for me because the way my apartment's shaped, and we've talked about this a few times, guys, but my door, like the door into my apartment is in my peripheral. I know the door's there. I can see it even when I'm working. I know it's over there. I have this, and I live alone, so I have this recurring fantasy that in the silence of me working, the door is going to explode open and a SWAT team's going to kill me. It's just going to blow up, and a bunch of dudes with guns are going to kick me out of my chair and shoot me. Like, there's something about being in an environment that's too quiet for too long, where you get paranoid and you keep thinking these things are going to happen.
Right. That's exactly it. Where it feels, it's like every time in the movies, like, oh, it's too quiet, and then like, boom, and then like everybody dies.
If it's too quiet for too long, there's danger everywhere. It's like
there's something in the shadow.
Like, I live next to the ocean, so outside my window, there's all kinds of like harbor lights and boat lights and stuff that I can see, and there's one radio tower on top of this Coast Guard thing. And I have to shut my blinds now at night. I used to just leave them open. I have to shut my blinds now because there's a red blinking light that I get in the peripheral of my eye, and every single time it blinks, I'm like, that's a sniper rifle. Every time I see it at night, I'm like, that's a guy who's going to take me out. that's a guy who's going to shoot me through the head. Like, I just sound insane. I'm going to stop now. This is getting bad.
This is what happens when you sit at a desk all day, though. You always imagine that, like, something's going to happen.
But that's the thing. See, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. I was saying earlier that, boredom is like the father of invention or whatever. Like, when I was super bored as a kid, I would think about stuff I wanted to create and stuff I wanted to draw. Now that I'm drawing all the time, but it's not stuff that I'm interested in, so I'm bored while I'm stimulated drawing, my brain has to go to an even weirder place where it's like, how many ways could you die right now? It's like, it's the same kind of thing. The boredom is making me think of these crazy things, but since I'm already doing something creative, it has to go to a weirder place.
I do stand-up comedy for my dog.
I know you do, and that's my favorite thing about you. You tell jokes to your dog, and then you pretend that they laugh.
I leave pauses for laughter after I tell the jokes.
Yes.
I don't laugh, and neither does Rico.
Yes, you do.
I just stare at her. Hey, it's great to be in Boston tonight. I just look out at the food I'm cooking.
It's great to be in Boston
tonight. Telling jokes. I go, ooh. I'm all alone now, huh?
It's Beantown. You guys like beans? Staring at your dog. I never really liked beans. My mom made me eat them anyway. Staring at them.
Exactly. That's like all I do. It's just freestyle.
See, I do
comedy to my dog.
I do a darker version of that. I almost don't want to say it. I think I've told you about this before. When I have a pet tortoise. When I feed my tortoise, I talk to him, and it's always something like, "You don't love me, do you? You don't even have emotions. You're cold-blooded." And I just watch him eating, and I'm like, "You don't even know I'm here." And then I sit down and I keep painting. It's horrible. Just a monologue to a reptile.
Oh.
If I didn't feed you, you'd die. You don't even care. You don't even know who I am.
Yeah. I like how this could be misconstrued as like a legitimate dark thing.
No, it's just funny.
I genuinely think it's funny.
It is, because once I sit down, I start laughing, but in the moment, it's real. Ooh.
Yeah, like Dan's talked about this. I don't know if you talked about it on here, but like when you're sitting and you just start crying, like working.
Yeah.
Like that's happened to me.
Yeah, it's happened to me. I've started crying at 3 a.m. while working.
Just like pain like a demon.
Stress. Yeah.
Crying.
I think it was
crazy. The sad tears.
It was a month.
Oh my god.
It was a month ago. It was like almost exactly a month ago. I remember I was doing 14 jobs. Remember that? It was like my record high. I was doing 14 images at once. And it was 4 a.m. I hadn't slept. I had a deadline and I was working, and all of a sudden I just started crying. And I didn't know why I was crying. I didn't feel sad, but I was just weeping. And what's crazy...
I just love what you're painting. And you're just painting through the tears.
Yeah.
The worst stuff.
But what's crazy is, while I'm crying, I'm not concerned that my body has spontaneously made me weep and sob. What's concerning me is that if I don't stop crying, I'm not going to get it done in time. So it's like a triple-decker sandwich of unhealthy. It's like you can put more unhealthy on that. Come on, man. Stack it up. It's the Baconator of mentally unhealthy. That's what it is.
Just tears.
I can
tears
show you.
Actually,
I can show everybody what I was. I can show everybody what I was. It was more than a month ago. I can show everyone what I was painting when it happened. Let me. Oh man, this is gonna kill you guys. This is a bad image. I don't even want to show this.
I like when somebody said, "Oh, I thought you took a picture of yourself crying."
This is gonna make it real.
I would love that. Just a webcam shot of you in tears.
This is gonna make it real. Okay, this was the people on demand aren't gonna be able to see this, but this was the weirdest commission I've ever had to do for a client. It was for Pathfinder. I love working with Pathfinder.
What are you dropping in the chat?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the chat in just a second. But this is let me tell you, just as a disclaimer, when you look at this image, none of this was me. This is exactly what they asked for. Everything in the image is what they asked for. I didn't make any of it up. It's exactly what they wanted. It's a really weird image. But this is what I was painting at 4 a.m. the day before a deadline when I snapped and started weeping. And,
Iggy Pop.
there you go. I'm not going to explain it because that's what they asked for, but oh, that was
God. What is it?
It's a woman, man. It's a manly woman.
I almost peed my pants, so I gotta go pee.
Go ahead, man. Go pee. I'll be terrible alone for a few minutes. It's okay. Why does it have boobs? Because it's a woman, but she's an extremely manly woman. The way that they described it was take that character Brienne from Game of Thrones, kind of, but make it even manlier. Like, we want to see, like, the muscle. We want it to be very manly. And then make it look like she hasn't slept in a week. Give her, like, super bloodshot eyes. Give her, like, you know, she has to look worn down. She has to look like she's been on the run for days and days and days. But she also has to be a woman man. So it was a really weird commission. It was really weird. Lots of weird things going on. But it made me cry. No, it didn't make me cry. It was just I was too stressed. I hadn't slept in like 3 days, and I was doing too many jobs at once. I was doing 14 jobs at once. And it was just an unhealthy thing to do. I shouldn't have done it. And stress will do that. Stress will break you faster than anything. That's the biggest thing to watch out for when you start doing this is, you know, if you're desperate for cash, what are you going to do? You're going to take on more jobs to make more money. More jobs means less time. Less time means you can't spend as much time on each job, so the stress starts multiplying itself and multiplying itself, and it's stress on top of stress on top of stress, and there's a breaking point. You know, you can't take an infinite amount of that. There's a certain point where that's gonna snap, and that is what happened. It only happened to me one other time. It was when I was in college during finals my senior year. I was working on 12 paintings at once, and I snapped. I was talking about the last time that happened before that, when I was in college. Remember I snapped?
No.
I told you about that. I know when I was
yeah, I'm sure you
when
did.
I was doing the finals thing, when I was doing those 12 paintings at once, the end of my senior year, I just I left the school and I sat down in my car, and then I just started crying. It was like the day before finals were due. It was the worst. But yeah, you know.
I love crazy tears.
There you go.
They're the best.
Yeah, the client loved it. I mean, it was exactly what they asked. It was just a weird request. I never had to paint a, you know, insomniac man lady before. But, you know,
Insomniac man lady.
That's what I do now. All I do is insomniac man ladies. It's my specialty. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I don't know if anyone wants us to talk about anything else. I'm not going to be tired for a while.
Yeah, too much coffee.
Exactly.
I've peed so much.
I know.
Tired of peeing.
We can talk about that. We've had this conversation privately. I'm going to expose it in public light now. Sorry. When holding in pee gets exciting. When you're a freelancer, like you work better when you don't pee. It's like some kind of like ticking clock thing in an action movie. Where it's like all your senses are working at maximum capacity when you really have to pee, but you don't go to the bathroom. So I sit here and I'm like, I really gotta pee. And that's when I'm painting my best, is when I really have to pee. Maximum potential is when you really gotta pee.
Yeah, that's where it peaks.
This is where we shouldn't talk anymore. This is where we should just go. Because it's gonna get way too introspective. Crimson Conversations coming back. Yeah, we're gonna do one with Anthony Jones. We just don't know when because he's really busy right now doing his Kickstarter and running his contest for his Kickstarter, and he's doing all kinds of amazing things. And we were going to originally do it to promote his Kickstarter, but he doesn't need the promotion because he's been wildly successful with it. So we'll probably do it right before it's over or right after it. I'm assuming. But if you guys have any questions for Anthony Jones, you can put them on the forum in the Crimson Conversations section. There's a thread. We take the questions beforehand to prevent waterfall chats. But yeah. You want to hear about pricing? Pricing's all relative. We can't really tell you that. Prices are different for everybody depending how good they are and who they're marketing their stuff to. So, what you're worth to a company based on how good you are is different than what you're worth to a private client because they don't understand the set standards. You can usually always make more from a private client. Not always, but usually.
I mean, it depends.
Depends on the private client. Yeah, everything depends with pricing, so it's hard to answer.
Yeah, and the other thing is jobs, what the job is, who it's for, what it's for. If it's like an open-ended kind of thing where they ask you, then you have to gauge it based on what it's going to be used for.
Right.
And when that happens, it's all over the place because you never know. If it's for a popular thing, you usually get more money.
Right, because think of it's relative, guys. Because think about if a company says we just want you to do one image and it's nothing crazy. You're like, oh, okay, then that's not going to cost much. But then if you find out that they used it as the logo for the game and they used it on fucking everything and it's like the most repeated image they have in the franchise, you should have got more money for that. That's the thing is what's the use going to be? Is it a throwaway piece of concept art that no one's ever going to see that's only for the 3D team? Or is it like a marketing illustration that they're going to put on their website to draw people in? Depending how heavily they use the image and what the purpose is, that all affects what you're going to get paid.
Yeah, pricing it really is. It's all over the place. There really isn't a set thing.
No.
Anywhere.
I will say when you're in the middle, like this whole conversation I've been talking about, I'm in the middle right now. People tell me what the price is, and I don't really get to negotiate because I'm working for companies and they have set rates. So if I get a private commission, I can negotiate, but 90% of the work I'm doing now and probably 90% of the work you're going to do when you're in the middle is going to be publishing companies and, RPG games and stuff like that. And they have set rates. They don't negotiate. It's, if you're going to do a character, it's this much money. If it's a portrait, it's this. If it's an illustration, it's this. And that's the way it is for a while. You have to do that and take what you get. And then when you're good enough, you can tell them what you want to be paid. And then you can kind of turn the tables. But it takes a while to get there. We were talking a lot about that earlier, if anyone has listened to this whole thing. If not, this will be on YouTube and on demand and whatever. But yeah, for a long time, they tell you what you're worth, and that's what you're worth. So just get ready for that.
It's just a matter of aiming towards the clients that you hear pay better or whatever. But a lot of this is networking and figuring out, making friends and figuring out who does what and what companies are good and
right.
Yeah, I mean it's be a member of the community, you'll figure everything out pretty much.
I mean, I can talk about I know all the rates and stuff for all the companies that I want to work for and all the companies I do work for. But just so you understand what I'm talking about, if you wanted to work for like I do a lot of work for Pathfinder right now, they send you a contract and you sign it before they send you the work. And in the contract, it has the set rates, and everybody that works for them gets the same contract. So you
can't even always talk about rates either.
No. So you're not getting screwed. Because it's a set thing. It's not like somebody else doing the work for them is getting more money than you because they're better. It's just a set rate, and
unless it's for something special.
Yeah, unless it's a promotional thing. But that's a unique scenario. But for those kind of companies, everybody doing a cover is usually getting the same money for a cover. Everybody doing a character is usually getting the same money for a character. Companies like Magic have a sliding scale. They never pay under a certain amount or over a certain amount with a couple $100 difference between the two. So everybody's getting, within $400, everybody's making the same amount of money. But, yeah, I mean, you'll learn more about that as you go up the ladder. But yeah, rates are just like, sorry, we can't give you more specific information. It's just everything's relative.
Yeah, and then hopefully things change. I mean, hopefully, like everybody's kind of been like getting on this kind of
Yeah, Magic
I
Cards.
mean, like lately, people have been kind of like getting on this whole thing of changing the rates, changing the industry, making it better.
Yeah,
hopefully
I think
it keeps moving that direction.
I think the rates are going to go up in the next couple of years based on the climate of what's going on with all the people working in the industry and all the companies and the new competition that's been popping up and the Kickstarter problem. It's not a problem for us; it's a problem for everybody else. But I think rates are going to go up. But right now, it's pretty. Any of the middle jobs, any of the company jobs are set rates. And yes, to answer Ryan's question, I already answered it. But Magic has set rates. It's a sliding scale of set rates. You never get under a certain amount or over a certain amount, but based on how good you are, there's a couple $100 of fluctuation in between.
Yeah, because you get to do different kinds of cards and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah. Uh, Top tip: do not sign any exclusivity contracts. Uh, yeah. I mean, you have to in some scenarios, but only if you've made it, really.
Yeah, like, only if it's like really, really great.
Like if you're going to work for like Rockstar Games, you're going to sign an exclusivity contract.
Well, only if you're gonna be there. I mean, like
yeah,
you have to like there's usually like if it's not exclusivity, it's like a non-compete sort of thing where you can't work for a company that's similar to that company, like somebody doing the same kind of thing. So like if you're working on a video game and you get a contract and it has a non-compete clause kind of thing, and you won't be able to work for another video game company.
Yep, those kind of things. But if you're at the point where you're dealing with clients that big, you have to get ready for that kind of stuff anyway, because you're never going to be allowed to work on huge IPs like that without signing non-competes and stuff like that. I mean, even as early on as basic freelance, you have to start signing NDAs all the time. I've signed like 100 NDAs at this point, but like that's a normal thing. And then as you get better, there's non-competes, and then if you're way at the top, I guess exclusivity could be a problem.
Yeah, I've never certain exclusivity things are like there are good ones. I mean, just depending on whether you want to do the work or not. Like if you work for Marvel, like Marco did an exclusivity contract for Marvel where all he could do was Marvel work, but obviously that got him an insane amount of exposure.
Yeah, that made his whole career really.
Yeah, I mean,
that one business move.
He got like everything from that. Plus, it gave him healthcare and a bunch of other stuff.
Yep. I mean, really, everything that's the kind of scenario where it's like, never lay down a statement that's just total non-negotiation. Like, don't ever find yourself in a position where you're like, I will never sign an exclusivity contract, because, like we just described, there's scenarios where they can be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, like sometimes it's really, really great.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'd know it. You'd know it if it happened to you.
And the other thing is that no one ever asks you to sign a contract overnight. You can talk to other professionals that have worked. Any company that's going to come at you, you can find somebody else who's worked for that company 9 times out of 10, especially if you're getting requests from bigger companies. So if you're feeling weird about signing something, talk to somebody else who's worked with them. Find out if they're good about their stuff. Find out if they pay on time. Find out if they honor their agreements. It's, with the internet, there's really no excuse for stupidity. You can't blame anyone for something going wrong but yourself. Because, don't get into bed with a client without looking them up. That's like 101 kind of stuff. You should always look people up. I mean, I get emails all the time, and I don't mind. I did some art for this company, Dream Reactor, and they don't really have a site, and they don't really have contacts anywhere because they're still trying to set all that up. But, they're like a little nothing kind of startup thing. They don't really have the exposure yet. But people want to work for them, and they don't know what to do, so they email me and other people who've done work for them. And they're like, hey, is this company good? How do I submit? Are they good about payment? And, I answer all those emails every time. Most people do. I've sent those emails to professionals that I've heard of before, and they always answer. But, yeah.
Yeah, probably escape.
want to get off of here?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to stop. We're right at the 3-hour mark anyway. We're at 2 hours and 58 minutes, so that's a good time to stop. Hope this wasn't too depressing. It wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah, we were just joking around mostly.
Yeah.
I mean, anything, whenever we even talk about anything that's like too dark sounding, we're usually just being sarcastic.
Yeah, this was all just stress relief.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. I had a great time talking and drawing and answering questions. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for coming, everybody. And this will be on YouTube, and I'll put it on Facebook, and it'll be on demand. So, thanks. Have a great time.
Bye. Good seeing the faces of names.
Back to being alone. Sorry. Good night.